Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Carl. Welcome to Carl's Opinion. Let's just get this zapped off right here. There we go. So hey, welcome to our Tuesday night live call-in show, brought to you from lovely Pahrump. As you saw, I had a picture up there showing Red Rock Canyon. That's a about 40 miles from where I live. It's a national park, and it's really wonderful to look at. And hold on, let's see what we got here. All right. Okay. And in fact drove through it yesterday. In fact, it was really nice. There's a lot of iron content there. Great hiking place, camping. A lot of tourists come out to see it. Las Vegas Strip tries to hide the fact that we have such beautiful places nearby because they want everybody to go to the Strip and the Strip alone. But understandable, that's where they make their money. So, but anyway, hey, I see. Let's see. We got in the chat. I see we got the great dirtbag, Laura, Shonda. How you doing? No quarter. Hey, welcome by. Rocky USA, Jervis. Good seeing you guys. And let's see. Make sure I don't want to make sure I miss anybody. But yeah, we got a live call-in show. Of course, the big Betsy Ross flag scandal, which is amazing. I just can't believe it. You got moderate Democrats saying, I'm going to cover it on this story. Some moderate Democrats like Joe Scarborough. He considered himself a well, I think he even called himself a former Republican. I'm not sure what he is now, but I would definitely call him a moderate Democrat at best, maybe left leaning. But even he realizes his big thing is to get rid of Donald Trump, and because of course, as you know, him and Mika Brzezinski, they were together before their divorces were final. Donald Trump made that public. It cost them both a lot of money, and because they both live in no-fault states in New York, and it cost them both a lot of money in their divorces, so they've been mad at him ever since. It's more personal than political, actually. And so, he's like saying to the Democrats, hey, listen, I don't know what you guys are planning on doing, but you guys are planning on losing the election between the illegal immigration thing and now jumping on board on the bandwagon on the whole Betsy Ross flag. So let's take a look to see what Joe Scarborough had to say. I found it interesting. This is from the Washington Times. So, and again, everybody wants to call in. Phone number is 775-273-8970. If I don't recognize the number, don't feel slighted. It means you might get the zombie for a little bit, just until I get figure out who you are. But then again, the zombie's kind of cool. Maybe it's kind of a nice thing. Hey, Shonda, yeah, good seeing you. Rocky, yeah. And so if you get the zombie for a couple of minutes, don't feel insulted or anything. The zombie's a pretty cool guy, not bad at all. So anyway, let's get to the first story here. This one I found interesting. Here's Joe Scarborough, and he kind of ripped him apart a little bit after the debate regarding illegal immigration, and then he just continued on with this because he's like, "What are you people doing?" So anyway, let's take a look to see what Joe Scarborough had to say. Joe Scarborough from Morning Joe rips Nike and woke, quote unquote, woke Democrats for feeding into the PC madness. Again, from Washington Times, MSNBC's Joe Scarborough tore into Nike and quote unquote woke Democrats in a Twitter rant on Tuesday after Nike pulled a new 4th of July shoe featuring Betsy Ross's flag, reportedly after Colin Kaepernick expressed concerns. And as you saw in the title to this, I wrote, "I got my Betsy Ross flag made in the USA. Did you?" And I also put in the description page, thanks Jeff Bezos for my made in the USA Betsy Ross flag with free day shipping. Yeah, as everybody knows, I live kind of in a rural area, so it's like I can't just drive somewhere and get something. But Amazon, that's who I go to, and I know Jeff Bezos leftist and everything else, but hey, he's a capitalist, and I can get stuff shipped to me free with free day, 2 day shipping, and I can get it to my office, and I don't have to drive an hour and a half each way to go pick something up. And anyway, so I went on a site last night when I saw this whole thing with Kaepernick break out, and I said, I'm going to get me one of them Betsy Ross flags. I'm sure Amazon was like, yeah, this is great, because I'm sure everybody was jumping over there, and they had if you're a Prime member, they had Prime shipping with some of the items, and they had, I looked for one that was actually, made in the USA, and sure enough, there it was, and it was under a Prime, like a Prime category, which means if you're a Prime member, you get free 2 day shipping. So, and even though I ordered it late last night, with the 2 days, it's going to be here tomorrow, Wednesday. So that's pretty cool. So I'll be hanging that up behind me on the future video. So right now I got the Stars and Stripes right behind me right now, but I'll have the Betsy Ross flag up after tomorrow. So if I do a live stream tomorrow night, I'll definitely have the Betsy Ross flag sitting behind me. So good deal. But anyway, so let's go on to see what else. Uh, even Joe Scarborough is getting upset. So anyway, so the Betsy Ross flag is now a symbol of. So Scarborough tweets, the Betsy Ross flag is now a symbol of white nationalism and slavery? Question mark. Not to, and then he goes on to say, it's not defiance against a distant monarchy. Really, Nike? PC madness is accelerating just in time for 2020. Trump feeds on your reflexive wokeness. Great job, everybody. He almost sounds like me, like, hey, great job, fantastic, way to go, guys. And then a few hours later, the Morning Joe host wrote that the crowded field of Democratic candidates has moved so far to the left that the party, the Democratic Party, stands a tough chance at beating President Trump in 2020. In other words, he's saying you guys are going to have a really hard time doing this. So he says, Scarborough goes on to write, Democratic candidates you now support, Democratic candidates you now support, one, universal health care for illegal immigrants, two, making illegally crossing America's borders legal, and three, a return to forced busing. Do you also now support the banning of the Betsy Ross flag from public places? At Woke Nation, Mr. Scarborough tweeted. He goes, let me disabuse woke Democrats of the notion that I expect them to adjust their beliefs and strategies to suit former Republicans. I don't. But I do not want them to refrain from blowing themselves up politically and reelecting, but I do want them to refrain from blowing themselves up politically and reelecting Trump, he continued. But y'all be y'all and lose another election to Trump that you should have won and start by continuing to fight those who want him beaten just as badly. Basically, he knew he was going to start catching some shit from the left on this, so he's pretty much telling him ahead of time, yeah, go ahead, yell at me. I'm just trying to tell you how to win. So he goes on the right. I started going to the White House and working around presidents and prime ministers at an early age. I led a coup to drive Gingrich out as Speaker in my 30s and spent time around leaders I greatly respected. Trump never rated with those leaders. Thrilled? Question mark. Not even close. He added, stop setting yourself on fire. Just beat Trump. Mr. Scarborough, a fierce Trump critic, later excused himself for venting and said he would delete his past tweets so as not to cause a distraction from the election. He made his point, though. And then he goes, at beat Trump, he ended his rant. And then the story goes on to say Nike's Air Max 1 Quick Strike 4th of July shoes that featured Betsy Ross's flag for the 13 American colonies drew concern from Mr. Kaepernick because he said the early flag has connections to slavery, sources told the Wall Street Journal. And then Nike's decision to pull the shoes from stores sparked intense backlash from the right, including from Arizona Governor Doug Ducey, who announced Tuesday that he had ordered the Arizona Commerce Authority to withdraw incentives for Nike to build a plant in the state. Yeah, so and this kind of goes along with this next story here, as far as how the left is just kind of committing internal suicide here, and it shows just how distant they are from the American people right now. I mean, I was talking about this with the great dirtbag the other night. In fact, we were having this conversation. Was that they're not talking to, or it might have been. I think it was the great dirtbag. It might have also been Effie Loves America. But how the Democrats are making the same mistake, now going to the 2020 election that they made in 2016. In other words, they weren't talking to the people. Speaking of which, oh, here we go. Hey, Mr. Dirtbag, how you doing?
What's up, Carl? How you doing? Hey, I hope I didn't interrupt anything. I know you're in the middle of. Did you want me to call back?
Nah.
Sure? Okay.
Yeah, we can even just go ahead and then we'll just talk about the next story when when we get there. So that's okay. You're good. Good to go, man.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Hey, Carl, I know I say this a lot, but when and I say it time and time again, but the fact that these Democrats are running on such things that they know we're gonna possibly lose them an election, it all goes back to that stranglehold the globalists have on the Democrat Party. They won't let them run on anything else, and they're hoping that their base. See, you know what they're stalling for time? They're stalling for time, hoping that enough people are registering to vote, hoping that they can get as many illegals as possible, under fake Social Security numbers, under fake IDs, everything in their power to try and turn this election in favor of whoever gets the Democrat nomination. And look at all the I think I saw an article today about ICE raids were starting, I think, after the 4th of July. I haven't read it yet, but if because Golden State Times was reporting, and I was watching a little bit of it today, that apparently Trump is backing off the citizenship question. Now,
Yeah,
in
well,
my personal opinion,
the Supreme Court ruled against him, so they really couldn't do much about it.
yeah, yeah, but it's good that he stopped, trying to push it, because what he can do is he's changing tactics. So what they need to do is get as many illegals out of this country as possible before the census comes out. Because from what I understand, they're already printing papers, they're already printing. They're already. I think they're looking for volunteers now, people to go out. Hiring people to go out and door to door and phone calls. However they're doing it this time, but see, that's the thing. These globalists, they're trying to mess with the electoral college by flooding as many states as they can with illegals to change they're trying to swing, obviously, we know they're trying to swing the vote in the Democrats' favor,
Right.
So,
Right.
That's kind of, and then you have all these ICE holdovers from Obama that are flying these people around, or getting them to any states necessary, sanctuary states, cities, to, again, mess with the electoral college, I'm kind of
Right.
hoping,
Yeah.
I think I mentioned, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, and, they've also got, what is it, like here in Florida, DeSantis passed I think we talked about it last time, he passed ordered state, local authorities to cooperate with federal agents. But I'm hoping that what he does is some of the laws that they're passing will open up investigations into some of the nonsense that goes on in Broward County, who obviously can't get their stuff together. I'd like to say another word, but out of respect for your show, I won't say it like that. You know what I'm saying?
Appreciate it.
It just what it is they're going full, they're throwing everything they have at trying to defeat Trump in 2020. Now, here's
Right.
something interesting that people need to be aware of this, and this is something that people are not talking about. George Soros, there was an article, I think, that George Soros and some of his groups were going to start a campaign to try and get rural America away from Trump. Now, how exactly are they going to do that? I mean, are they going to go and invest in their towns? Are they going to bring jobs to their towns? Are they going to start backing more moderate Democrats disguised as blue dogs, or, even have, Republican talking points? I just hope rural America is not dumb enough to fall for something like that, especially after everything that's happened. Because what they could be doing now is, instead of targeting the Democrat voter base, they could be targeting the rural base, like the independents that live in these rural counties, and not more, maybe middle of the road right, a little bit slightly right. They're gonna be targeting those people to try and see if they can sway the vote. Let's say Trump wins, right, and whoever runs, whoever success is Trump, right? They're going to be planning long term as well as short term.
Oh yeah, they're definitely planning long
And
term. I totally agree with you. I mean, yeah, I mean they're looking. I think these guys are smart enough. I mean, look, these guys aren't stupid. They're looking at the Democratic field right now.
no,
They don't see any standouts. They don't
mm-hmm,
see anybody. I mean, Kamala Harris got the nice bump, and I was kind of happy because, as you know, I
mm-hmm,
predicted she would win the Democratic nominee, so she was making me look bad by losing it. So if she wins it, then I'm like, see, I was
mm-hmm,
right. But she still won't win the
yeah,
general. But I mean, they're looking at these candidates. They're saying, okay, vis-a-vis each other, one's better than the next. They're all about the same. But can any of them actually beat Donald Trump with a good economy and peace breaking out around the world? And these guys like Soros, they're smart
yeah,
enough to know that's probably not going to happen. So yeah, they're gonna put some money in here to, keep the Republicans from running up a big large bank account, make the Republicans spend their money.
mm-hmm,
But they're planning
yeah,
beyond 2020. They're looking at 2022, 2024, 2026, and beyond. So
yeah,
I agree with you. So they're gonna. So right
because
in order to sway these people in these small towns, you can't just show up tomorrow and say, "Here's some money, vote our way." No, you got to build a consensus
yeah,
over time, and that takes
mm-hmm,
4, 6, 8 years to do. So yeah, I agree.
yep,
I'm glad you're reporting on that because more people need to know it. Actually.
yeah, yeah. And here's something else that people need to be aware of too. Is that these globalists know that um, but people can't also forget too that they still want to destroy the country state by state. So people, even during these midterms, the House, the Senate, people need to be getting out and voting. Now
Yeah,
here's something that people need to understand. There is more than one form of globalism. Okay, people have to be aware that the globalists can work around all of Trump's accomplishments, not necessarily destroy the country in a way they'd like to do it, but maybe try to fade out the middle class in a different way. Like, for example, they could, let's say a Democrat gets elected after Trump, right? Well, maybe the globalists don't make that Democrat roll back regulations right away, right? Like let's say if Kamala Harris did, she'd probably start putting caps on all those regulations, maybe even forcing states on, governors on a state level to do the same. Um, you know, and, that's something that we have to be aware of. We have to, also get that word out too. That in particular message, that's one of the things that they want to do,
okay, so
because,
in other words, they want to bring back the regulations to kind of depress the middle class and create a situation in the country where people feel like what's the use? It doesn't matter who you vote for. People become despondent, stop voting, stop caring, stop paying attention to the politicians. That kind of thing. Is that what you're talking about?
yeah, I'm sorry, I don't mean to ramble on. I do apologize, Carl. Um, um, that kind of thing, but also let's say like they don't just cut back regulations fast. Let's say that they make up some kind of another scenario, right? Like, some kind of new thing in climate change, and then they want to target a specific type of regulation. You know what I mean? They could probably prop that up, get scientists to do studies on it. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like,
like well, they're doing that right now,
it's
aren't
like,
they? I mean, they're doing that right
yeah,
now,
oh
right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's. I mean, I'm sorry, Carl. I don't really have the background on this, and I'm just, stuff that I've been seeing and just stuff that I've been kind of piecing together, on
No, I mean
certain things,
no
like
no that
some
that no
studies.
that's how you kind of come to no. I do the same thing. Like I'll see this and I'll see that, and it's
Hmm.
then you just kind of piece things together and you say, oh wait a second, what the hell is that? It's like how I was kind of piecing together how this whole counter intel thing with the Trump campaign. My in my opinion, I share this with H.A. Goodman. I sent him a super chat on this on one of his shows. About the fact that hey,
Hmm.
what if this whole Trump, dossier, investigation, counterintel thing was actually just a front. Like, remember, counterintel is like when you think you know what they were doing, then you still missed it,
Hmm.
because counterintel is about like it's
Yep.
really a couple of layers beyond that. So what if all this was just a big
Yeah.
distraction just to get real time intel over to the Clinton campaign? During the election. In other
Yeah.
words, all this stuff, and
Hmm.
then now they're saying, "Oh, you caught us spying on the Trump campaign, to try to make him look bad." But actually, that
Yeah.
wasn't their deal. Their deal wasn't trying to make Trump look bad. It was just to be able to try to get real time intel to give it to the Clinton campaign so that she could use it to win the election. And then the insurance policy was, well, if
Yeah.
he wins, then we'll use all this stuff anyway. We got it here. We'll just use it to try to discredit him once he gets elected. So I mean, but when you it's, no, I
Yeah.
understand. I understand exactly the process you're going through in your mind because you're trying to piece all this together, and like these guys have already
Yeah.
pre thought this shit out, and us trying to go back and unpack it from what they're doing and
Yeah.
why they're doing it. That's kind of confusing. So no, it's it's
Yeah.
it's interesting to hear you going through the
Hmm.
same kind of tortured, like what the hell's going on kind of shit, that I go through on a regular basis. So it's kind of cool hearing you going through it too. So yeah, go ahead, man.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I mean, I don't, I mean, I try to, I mean, because I don't have like the background to explain it in a way like educated wise, but I do see like the patterns, and you do see because these global, I mean, patriots are in control. I do believe that, Trump's in control, his allies are in control, but the deep state is still dug in, and, they're going to find ways to work around all of Trump's accomplishments. And how I was saying that there's more than one type of New World Order, they could do it rather, let's say maybe they do it more in a capitalist kind of way rather than a socialist kind of way. You know what I mean? Where like, let's say, like for example, here's why I say this. We all know the globalists want the world's resources. They want control of all of the world's resources. Well, let's say they decide, well, maybe trying to get all of the world's resources isn't the way we could do it, but maybe what we can do is, maybe keep half of the world's resources. If they change their tactics and they're willing to settle for less, I mean, remember, these are idealists. They're not in this for profit. They're idealists. And even if they
Right.
have to negotiate, compromise a little bit on what they want, they'll do it to see what they want. So let's
Right.
say that they decide, well, we have open borders, we have New World Order, but if so-and-so goes to this part of the world, so-and-so has to learn these customs, they can reshape their New World Order to fit that type of a narrative. You know what I mean? I don't know if it makes sense the way I'm explaining
Well,
it,
no, I mean,
but
they're moving to like countries that people aren't paying attention to. Like the whole thing where they were in what was formerly Yugoslavia, and they were making inroads into the U.S. embassy, making friends there, and pushing little like humanitarian aid kind of situations, whereas there are people out front doing it to
yeah,
get the local communities to side with them and say, hey, these guys are really nice guys. Oh, and you're communists? Oh, who
hmm
cares? I don't care about your politics. Just come on in.
yeah,
And then they get embedded, and for them, it's a generational fight. They're like, I totally agree. They're
yeah,
thinking totally long term. That was the whole point of like the guys in the '60s, like with the Weathermen Underground. With
hmm
Obama's old friend, the palling around with terrorist guy. What was his name? The professor. Shit. The guy who was with the Weatherman Underground.
oh yeah,
Yeah, that guy. Whatever the hell. He
hmm
went. Then he goes. He realized
oh,
that they weren't going to change America quickly through this kind of acts of violence, and so they backed up. They rethought it. They said, "Oh, we need to do this. This is going to take about 25, 30 years, maybe longer. And the
yeah,
way to do it is to get into
hmm
academia, to get into these universities, and start, brainwashing, propagandizing these young people, and just kind of start
yeah,
bringing them along, in a generational after generational. And then next thing you know,
hmm
they end up not just, one professor here, one professor there, but like they're the majority of professors in the country, and they were
hmm
teaching guys who are now professors today, teaching who are even more radical, teaching their students. That's why you see all these students, talking silly and things like white privilege and all this other kind of crap, and
yeah,
whatever. And these people are now going to become voters as well. And hopefully, they're
hmm
hoping that once they, get, and then of course they don't want them to have a family, because once you get married and have kids, then you start thinking about issues like, oh, taxation, law and order, college. You start thinking middle class values, and that's exactly what they don't want these people to have, is any kind of middle class values. So that's why they don't want them to
exactly.
have families, they don't want them to have
Yep.
kids, they don't want them to get married.
hmm
They just want them to be single, independent, and just constantly being, avant-garde, pushing for these big social issues to help out the whole world, instead of they had a family, saying, hey, I got to take care of my family first, versus somebody
Yeah.
else. So
hmm
that gets them into that
Yeah.
globalist mindset, because they don't have a family or a church or a community around them, their neighbors. They have this globalist community of people on the internet, and then they can talk. They probably have more friends on the internet than they have like in their own cities or their own towns, and that's what they
Yeah.
want.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Because but see, the other thing too, like me being street smart like I am, I'm not trying to brag, but but I see people's talking points, and I can see. I mean, I'm not right all the time, but sometimes when I talk to people, I can actually listen. I listen for their tone. I listen to how they talk. I listen to how they structure sentences. I look at how they present themselves when they're structuring sentences and when they're talking to me, right? So I kind of pick and choose what I try to red pill them in. Like how I was, how I've said many times before. One of the more successful ways I've had at red pilling people is, the fact that people like to own guns for self-defense. That is, even left-leaning people, not radical far left, but even left-leaning people understand that, trying to rely on the cops to come in while someone's breaking your house is folly. A radical, like some of these radical liberals are like, well, I'll just call 911. Someone's breaking into my house. Okay, well, if one of your family members is, hurt or dead by the time the cops get there, don't know what to tell you. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
well, the whole
So
thing
it's
is
like,
like even if you live in a city which you have a good response time, which is say 10 minutes, which is a good response time,
yeah,
9 minutes, 10 minutes. Well, I mean, they're in your house within 10 minutes. They could do a lot of harm to you and your family. And what's
yep,
that saying? What's
yep,
that? What's
mm-hmm,
that saying? It's a saying about anti-gun control. Saying it's like, you know, um, see the cops when seconds matter, the cops will be there in minutes or something like that. I forget what it is, but it's something along
yeah,
those
and
lines. Yeah.
yeah.
And it's true. I mean, look. I
Well,
mean,
it's
look,
like,
we don't have a cop on every corner. Okay, you call 911. You know they're busy. They're out patrolling, and if you get lucky, maybe there's one driving close to your neighborhood. But 9 times out of 10, there isn't going to be, and that's just the way it is. I mean,
yeah,
the police are not there to provide home security. And unless you have the money to hire your own home security guard, and most of us don't, well, then you got to take care of it on yourself. And again, that's layered. We talked about this before. It's layered security. Starts with like a good lock on the door, surveillance cameras if you can
yep,
afford them. Although, albeit a surveillance camera is getting really cheap now, it doesn't take a lot of money just to get a little 1-2 camera setup. Even if you get like a 2 camera setup, one on like a front door, one like on the back door. Even if you can start with that, really little cheap, nothing setup, whatever. Maybe more labor intensive as far as hooking it up and stuff, but just something like that. And then, of course, a good barking dog. That's always great. That's a great alarm system.
yeah,
And then, of course, finishing it off
oh yeah,
with a gun, and being trained on how to
mm-hmm.
use it because when you wake up in the middle of the night, you better have that kind of what they call it muscle memory where you fire that gun and train with it so much that you wake up in the middle of the night out of a dead sleep that you're able to get your wits about you and be able to draw down and be able to aim it and not shoot yourself in the foot or shoot your loved one. You don't want to just pull the gun
Yeah,
and start. So that requires training and skill, and that does require a little bit of money because ammunition is not cheap anymore. So, but
yeah,
if
no,
if you're not willing to put a lot of rounds down range, if you buy a gun, then don't buy one. You can be more. It will be literally more of a danger to you and your family than to yourself. I mean, a minimum. I mean, I'm
well,
sorry. At minimum,
yeah,
you got to put like a couple hundred rounds through that firearm. At minimum. I mean, it's more than that, but
yep,
if you're starting out small, you're talking a couple of hundred rounds minimum through that firearm to get comfortable with it, to know where it lines up and where the sights line up, and how you feel with it, and how you're going to feel on that second shot, third shot. You know, and of course, the first
yep,
shot's the most important one. So, but yeah, I mean,
exactly,
you got to
yeah,
provide your own security. You're right. The globalists don't want you to be thinking independently. They want you to be thinking the cops will protect you. The state will protect you. They don't want if you start thinking independently or family oriented or security oriented or anything like that. Well, that's something they don't want. They don't want that. They don't want us to think like that.
yeah,
Basically just
exactly,
anti-American.
yeah,
However, America, the people who founded this country, the settlers who were, here in the 1700s, 1800s, those people, even the immigrants who came over in the 1800s and started all these businesses and companies and inventions and stuff, they're totally anti that. Whatever those people were, they're against it. Okay, that's who they are.
yeah, oh yeah. Well, the globalists also have this, they also have this mentality that, white. I mean, you look at history, right? Britain, France, Spain. Those three countries have had pretty big empires throughout history. I mean, Spanish and English are one of the most common spoken languages in the world. French as well. But these globalists have this mindset that the white man has destroyed everything. They come in and they just destroy everything. Well,
Yeah,
and
well,
it's like
and
they
what I
have
say,
this mentality.
what I say to those people is like, okay, take a look at anywhere. I always call it the European man because I think more of ethnicity than race or even color. I always think ethnicity because what they're really saying is like Europeans. Okay, we hate you guys.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
okay, take a look at every continent the way it was, the people who inhabited it, the way they were living before the European man, or even I call it the Mediterranean man. Your Greeks, your
Hmm.
Macedonians, those people. Okay, the
Hmm.
Romans,
Yeah.
Mediterranean
Hmm.
Europeans. Okay, those people. Okay,
Hmm.
look at anywhere they went and what it was like before they got there. Now, when they went into like Persia, okay, that was a civilization. That was a real civilization. Their form of government was not something we would jump up and down about, but it was still though they had a real civilization, real science, real structures. They had everything that would make what a civilization should be considered a civilization. In fact, hey, thank you,
Hmm.
Mr. Sedgway, man. Let me take a look real quick because I do have. I was going to bring this up. Hold on, let me see here. There we go. Okay, let me. I think I still have it. Let me see. All right, so let me get into this real quick. We'll talk about this. I'll put it up on the screen. Hold on.
Okay.
Oh wait, hold on, hold on.
I don't have my laptop on me.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll just let me just make it big though, so everybody else can
No, I
see
can
it.
run and
And
get it. I can run
no,
and get it
no.
real quick. Yeah, I'll run and get
Okay,
it real quick.
we'll go ahead and get it.
Yeah, yeah, I'll run and get it. Hold on one second.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, no problem.
Might
I'll tell you
take
what.
me just a minute to
Well, I'll
set
tell you
it
what.
up.
I'll talk about the prior story real quick, and then we'll jump into when you get back.
Okay.
Say I'm back, and then we'll get into this civilization thing and Europeans and stuff.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that'll work. Let's do that.
Okay.
Let's
Good.
see. Do, 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 do. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, dun, dun. Let's see. Do, do, do. Dun, dun. Where was it? All right, I got you. I got you on mute right now. So okay, hold on. No, you're good. I got you on mute. I think. I don't know. Anyway, let's go to this story real quick, and let's see here. Oh, you're back. Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
All right, we got the do. Okay, say something so I can see you're on.
Hello. Hello,
Yeah,
YouTube
yep,
world.
yep, you're on. Okay, good. All right, so let's jump
Cool.
over here. Okay, tell you what, let's take this. Yeah, okay, let me jump to that other story. Okay, hold on. What did I do with it? Let's see. Okay, here we go.
Wow, Shauna's got some good AOC memes. Wow. I'm such a bad influence.
I know you're just terrible. All right, so anybody who says like this thing about the Europeans came and destroyed, the whole world. Okay, so here's a good article here
Mhm.
about what is needed for a society. It should be up on your screen now. What is needed for a society to be called a civilization? So let's just take a look at this real quick. All right, so break it down and what is the need for society to be a civilization? Okay, so here we go right here. It's like the 10 things. You should be coming up on your screen here pretty quick here. And let me take down this so it gets out of the way. Boom. All right. So, one, urban settlements. Two, full time specialists not involved in agricultural activities. Three, concentration of surplus production. Four, a class structure. Five, state level organization, to it, a government. Six, monumental public buildings. That's like for people to gather around. Seven, extensive trading networks. Eight, standardized monumental artwork. Nine, writing, which it sounds crazy, right? But a lot of the places Europeans went to,
Mhm.
they did not have a written language, which means they had no way to pass down generational knowledge from one generation to the next to advance their knowledge. Okay, and two, development of exact
Mhm.
sciences, which goes part and parcel with writing. Now, if you look at the continents the Europeans went to, other than say Persia or possibly the Indus Valley, so the great civilizations of the world would say be like the Indus Valley, India, China, which certain parts of China, and then you look at like say the Mediterranean and Europe. Now, anywhere else the Europeans went, basically they did not have what is known as a civilization. So they basically a lot of them did not have a written language, so had no way to pass down information from one generation to the next. A lot of them there were another problem they run into is kind of weird. Yeah, I always say it's like the Garden of Eden syndrome. Like if you're in the Garden of Eden, you
Mhm.
don't have to and you live in a society like say like in sub-Saharan Africa, you got a lot of jungle, you got plenty of food, plenty of water, you do not have the big thing is you do not have four seasons. You live between the tropics, Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn along the equator. It's you can grow stuff grows all year round, so you have plenty of food. So now you look at the Europeans and like say people in the Indus Valley who had scarce resources, that forced them to have to work together as a group so they could live through the winter time. Things didn't you couldn't there wasn't food laying around in the winter. It was snow on the ground. So you had to think about things like okay, we got to store enough food up, we got to be able to survive. There's scarce resources, so and unlike in Africa, we have the jungle keeping people separated from each other. In Northern Europe, in Europe, or in those Indus Valley, China, you didn't have that. You had vast plains in some places, so you didn't have to collectively
Mhm.
form together as a group. And then, of course, here's a funny
Mhm.
joke too about that. Okay, so now, and then you also have to do it, develop a written language by necessity. You got to figure, okay, what worked last year, what didn't work last year, so we now to know how to do it this year. And here's the funny thing: somebody generally takes charge. Like the one guy I was interviewing talks about leaders and followers. So somebody starts barking out orders, right, to the group of people. Well, here comes the great question
Mm-hmm.
that's asked through time immemorial. Like somebody will look up and say, "Hey, who put you in charge?" Right? And so there's a great
Mm-hmm.
question. That
Yeah.
is like the spark that starts everything because then everybody says, "Yeah, who put you in charge?" And like, wait, how should we determine who's in charge? Like, what should we do? Should it be like an elder? Should it be God divine? Should it be, oh my God, a vote? Should we all vote to see who's in charge? And then once you vote for somebody in charge, maybe they have to have other people to assist them, and like a cabinet. And then maybe you have to have some kind of written laws to regulate how this works. So there's your formation of governments and civil. I mean, all that happened because of, like I always say, necessity. Well, I don't say it. Thomas Edison said it. Necessity is the mother of all invention. Europeans had to form civilizations because otherwise they didn't, they would starve to death. And same thing with people in other scarce resources. Persia with the desert and lack of water, Indus Valley, all kinds of issues there, and China with the high plains and everything, and being able to be attacked from different directions. So you had a form of civilization. Versus if you lived in the Garden of Eden, you didn't have any kind of written language, you had no medicine, you didn't have long life expectancies, you were separated from other tribes by dense jungle, so you didn't. It was, you could be every man for themselves, right? And so when the
Mm-hmm.
Europeans came to
Yeah.
these places, there was nothing there. I mean, literally, I mean, nothing by anybody's standards, either Indus Valley standards, China standards, Persian Empire standards, or Mediterranean/European standards. There was nothing. There was no structures. There was no form of government. There was just pretty much everybody doing their own thing, and they kind of all hang out together. So there was like one-story buildings,
Mm-hmm.
no aqueducts, no large-scale agriculture, no domestication of animals, no written language, no nothing. So when they say, oh, the European, man, Mediterranean man came to these places and ruined it, ruined what? I mean, is that how
Mm-hmm.
you want it? Now, I romanticize about living in the mountains. Okay, I love to go up, live in the mountains, build a cabin, and leave. Have a great life and hunt deer and fish, and be a mountain
Mm-hmm.
man. Okay, sure, I get that idea of romanticizing for hanging out. You wake up in the morning, you're hungry, you walk out to a tree, grab something, eat it. Take a big rock, hit an animal over the head, throw it on fire, and eat it. Okay, cool, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But still, though, when you live in a world that has several billion people, you have to learn how to work together, organize together. And Europeans are really great at this whole civilization thing. And other continents should say, "Hey, thank you. Now we have a cell phone versus us banging a drum and communicating with somebody I don't know, half
Mm-hmm.
a mile away." So
Well,
there you go.
yeah. No, I mean it makes yeah, no, it makes sense. But I mean it's like it's just like but what it's like what drives these globalists. I mean it's like yeah, we know the excuses they tell us. We know what they say. We know, or well, I won't say that they've said it verbally, but just what other people have seen it. But they seem to have this. I mean, it seemed like okay, like the when they say culture war, okay, that can be determined into many different things, right? Like right now, what you have originally, and I'll say it, it's a war against Western culture. But see, what you have clashing now is you've always had the civil war in in the African American communities with the the Democratic voter base versus the Republican base within the African American community.
Mm.
Like and then with the feminist movement, with the feminists. See the feminists on the left tend to tear men down. Okay, that's what they do. And then any woman who speaks up, like Deanna Lorraine, when she speaks up, she's kind of a voice for men who have, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of guys out there that are, that are scum. I get that. You know what I'm saying? But then you also have guys that are afraid to commit, the guys afraid to get married. They don't want to have kids because once they have kids, they know that they can have their, depending on what the situation is or whatever the agreements come upon in the court system, they could literally have their lives taken, But the point that I'm getting at is that you have these feminist groups on the left clashing with the women on the right who value family, who value, who understand that not all men are bad, and then you have the Hispanic conservative base against the like the younger, most of I mean, I don't know, the mainstream media says that most Hispanic vote Democrat. Well, I know that's not necessarily true because, again, I'm half Hispanic. I know people who are, more Hispanic than me, and they voted for Donald Trump because they understand that what Trump is doing. But see, that's where this culture war, in my opinion, is basically what it is. It's not so much. It's more like right wing. Well, I mean, we all know what it is. It's right wing ideas, but ideas of all kinds within the right versus all kinds of ideas on the left, and they just kind of clash. And some people get red pilled. Some people just don't want to see past what they've been told or what they think they know. And the thing is that these globalists, they've made a lot of mistakes. See, it's like here's where I point out their first mistake. Why would they import a bunch of people from, let's say, they make it easier for people from communist countries, right, to come in because the globalists think that just because they're getting handouts and stuff, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to vote Democrat because these, especially in Cuba, they know what government firsthand what government medical and relying on the government does. It doesn't do anything. I mean, you can have people who are business owners in Cuba, and unless they get a flock of tourists come into their area, people might go and buy drinks. People are ordering food. Okay, well business is thriving. Okay, but let's say you make for a whole week or 2 weeks that tourists are in town, you might make like maybe 20,000, 10,000, whatever the currency of Cuba is, right? Well, the government's going to seize more than half of it. The government, and they're going to redistribute the wealth, and you're probably left with barely anything to keep your business afloat. Repairs, you have to pay your people. You probably wouldn't have much left. I mean, okay, yeah, the government, takes care of you, but you're not really doing anything other than just surviving. You're basically kind of stuck in this.
Well, no, you're never going to advance because you don't get to see the rewards of your harder work. In other words, by working harder, by being more industrious, by being more ingenious than your neighbor, you don't get any benefit for that. So it destroys the incentive for people to want to be it destroys. If we lived in a socialist country, we would never have a Jeff Bezos. Okay, why would Jeff Bezos work?
Yeah.
16, 17, 18 hours a day when he was starting out to build up this Amazon, to build up his empire, to start, to work all the shitty jobs, I think he came up kind of like working class, his family was working class. Why would he do all this, put all this time, effort into it, just so at the end of the day, he lives in the same type of house, has the same type of things, can't take care of his family just like his neighbor who doesn't do anything all day. I mean, you destroy the incentive structure. That's why socialism countries always end up failing because you take away the incentive structure. They try to change human nature, and that's the biggest problem. Human nature is human nature, and they try to put us into re-education camps to get re-educate human nature out of you. Could think of only the collective good, and that we're all part of like a Star Trek. We're all part of the Borg. We're all part of the collective. They've been trying to get us to think that way for the last 200 years. And wherever they try it, it doesn't work. I mean, it's like, well, gee, if we just double down some more, maybe we can get it to work. Maybe people will just not be thinking of themselves, but just of everyone all at the same time, and you still will have a Jeff Bezos who will create an Amazon, even though he doesn't get rewarded for it, and even though he's in a system where somebody's maybe afraid that he's too smart and he's making everybody else feel bad because he's so smart and he's such a genius, they're hoping that they're trying to say we can still have a Jeff Bezos and still change human nature so that Jeff Bezos will still want to do all this, put in, 18, probably 20-hour days, probably knowing how he got to where he is, probably 20-hour days, 7 days a week. Jeff Bezos will still do that, even though he doesn't get any additional benefit other than, the benefit of helping the general good, which is nonsense.
Yeah.
That's not human nature. It never has been. It just hasn't been.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even countries that have let's say the countries that rely more on social safety nets than we do, those countries still have a predominant capitalist free market, open free market, because they understand that they have to have that. They have to have the taxation, the revenue coming in order to be able to pay
Oh,
for these
yeah, no,
programs.
I
I
totally
mean,
agree. Now, remember, a big part of the tax cuts in this country, Trump's tax cuts, was lowering the corporate tax rate because our tax rate was up 28, 35%. Europe, these great big social safety net countries, their corporate tax rate was down around, it is about 15%. Because even they recognize
uh,
we want to have companies stay here and we want to attract, well, let's be honest, U.S. United States companies investment to come over here. Say, look, you can make more money over here if you come over here. We just want your jobs, and
mhm.
we'll take care of the rest. And then there's a high. The marginal rates on personal are really high, but they've always kept their corporate rates. They may be like semi-socialists. They may be, in favor of big social safety nets, but they're also not stupid. And they know they need the jobs. Otherwise,
Yeah.
people revolt and
Mhm.
kick them out, and generally, put them up to the guillotine or hang them or just shoot them in the public square. So they don't want that to happen. So
Yeah.
the funny thing is, like, oh, you're lowering your corporate tax rates. You guys suck. It's like, well, do you like Europe? Well, yeah, Europe's great. They're totally cool. Well, their corporate tax rates are lower than ours. What? You tell these people on the left that they look at you like you're on crack. But the reason why we had a lower was so we can
Yeah.
compete with them. Even though we didn't get it as low as they have it, we got it low enough where American companies will say, "Yeah, I could go overseas and pick up that extra 4%, but the amount it's going to cost me, I'd rather stay in this country. I know the American worker. I don't have to deal with all the union shit crap going on over there in Europe. I can stay here. I can be in a right to work state. Fuck it, 4%. I'll just stay here." And then
Mhm.
same thing with foreign investment. Yeah,
Yeah.
we can invest in Europe and deal with all that shit, or we go to America. The most efficient workers in the world are the U.S. worker. We blow everybody away. Second place is way behind us. We've always been the most
Yeah.
efficient worker. In other words, American worker goes to work. He works. He's gonna outproduce his competitors by at least 50%. And that's just the way it is. So they want that, and not to
Yeah.
mention if they're making it here. The largest consumer market in the world is the United States, so shipping costs go way down. You're not shipping it anywhere; it's right here, and you're selling to your number one market in the world. The number two market being China. I think three is Europe after that. So I mean, so we got it low enough. So, but it's funny though when you talk to leftists, you tell them that the Europeans' corporate tax rate is lower than ours, they get upset with you.
Yeah. Well, it's also too, like, see, and again, like, going back to what the globalists, see, are the globalists going to want to mess with all the regulations, with all the tax cuts? I mean, yeah, we know they want to, but let's say if because again, they're thinking long term. I mean, they'll probably have to wait. Because, see, one of the mistakes they made was they executed their plan too quickly. See, they're hoping that enough generation was dumbed down enough to buy into all the BS that they're spewing. Free this, free that. And then they're like, oh, wait a minute, there's still too many, conservative type voters around, insane, or people with conservative values. So, let's say that they try to dumb down the generations more. Well, I mean, I'm in my early 40s, right?
Right.
So let's say
You're just a young little
let's say we
kid.
get
You're
Trump
just you're
elected.
just you're just you're just a young
Oh yeah,
kid.
yeah. But I think when all of their world vision of the world, I mean, I hope it doesn't come to pass, but I think by the time their vision of the world comes to pass, they're all going to be gone. I'll probably be in my, maybe my late 50s, early 60s. I mean, the middle class has been shrinking for a long time, and it's going to continue to shrink. I think obviously Trump getting in office has slowed down that process. Now, not saying that there isn't any hope, but the hope is in the hope that we have to rely on is getting the facts out there and getting the information out there.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Educating people. I
well,
mean,
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, look, we are doing it, and like you saw Scarborough's piece regarding, and then there was another piece. Let me see if I can find it real quick. We can talk about it. Let me jump over here. Hold on.
Carl, I think you got Club One Liner over here.
You
Shonda and EP, and
you got what?
it's like Club One Liner.
Oh
No,
yeah, no,
Carl's
no,
like in
yeah. You
Carl's
you
like in
you
Carl.
you you created a whole bunch of animals out there. I mean, even Effie's jumping in on it. You got everybody going on these
Yeah.
AOC stuff. I mean, I look down, I see like all these
Oh,
great dirtbag comments. I'm like, holy shit, man! It's like crazy in the chat room. I'm like laughing my
Pete.
ass off over here. I'm like, holy shit.
Uh,
But that's pretty funny.
Pete
Let's
the
see if I can find.
Patriot made
Go ahead. No,
Pete
go
the
ahead.
Patriot made a couple mugs. Pete the Patriot made a couple of mugs with my one-liners. He did one of Kamala Harris. I think he did one with Kamala Harris takes a salad to the dressing room. But it's awesome. I love it that people use my one-liners. Because like I said, it's I put them out there for people to use. I think Forbidden wanted to do some T-shirts, but I don't know where she's at on that. I haven't really. I just said go ahead. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
If she
right.
wants to, I don't know if she is, but but I hope it sells well for him. I hope it sells well because Pete's a good guy. Pete's a good guy, and he's a good YouTuber. He's very he's smart. He knows a lot of things going on. I mean, I gladly support his channel.
Well,
He's a
yeah,
great guy,
I
and
tell you
I
what.
hope.
Oh no, no, Pete's good, totally cool guy, without a doubt. But here, let's take a look at this story real quick. It should be up on your screen
Oh,
right
sure,
now. Let's take a look at
yeah,
it. No,
Democrat.
yeah, yeah. Stay on the phone. Democrats' position on immigration are starting to worry a lot of Democrats, and we talked about this earlier with Scarborough, what he was saying, and a lot of moderate Democrats are really starting to worry about what the hell is going on with the left. And you saw that with the Senate bill on the funding of the immigration. They all turned their back on the left on that one. But anyway, we hit this real quick
Mm-hmm.
here. I'll read it. It'll be a little bit behind for you, but I'll read it. The death of the so-called Gang of Eight bill in the House of Representatives in 2014 marks the point at which the Democratic establishment dropped any pretense of support for immigration enforcement. This last week in June 2019 will almost certainly mark the point at which the party's leaders declared not only their unconcealed hostility to immigration enforcement, but their rejection of the very notion that the United States should even have immigration laws. The week began with Pelosi, the party's highest ranking elected Fed, declaring a violation of status is not a reason for deportation. And this article says, no, that's just not so. And he points to 8 U.S. Code Section 1325, which I'll punch up real quick here. 8 U.S. Code Section 1325, saying any alien who enters or attempts to enter the United States at any time or place other than as designated by immigration officers or eludes examination or inspection by immigration officers or attempts to enter or obtains entry into the United States by willfully false or misleading representation or the willful concealment of a material fact shall, for the first commission of any such offense, be fined or imprisoned not more than 6 months, that's a misdemeanor, or more, and then for a subsequent commission, be fined under Title 18 or imprisoned not more than 2 years or both. That's a felony. So Pelosi says, "Oh, it's not a crime to be here without papers." Well, yes, it is. It's actually a misdemeanor for your first offense of coming across, and your second offense of coming across makes it up to a felony. And then this guy goes on the right. Pelosi went out to tout on a House supplemental appropriation to deal with the humanitarian fallout from the border crisis, and she said, "We have legislation to go forward to address those needs," and also stated clearly her view that anyone who makes it into the country, however they got here, should be allowed to remain. In terms of interior enforcement, and she wrote, what's the point? But Pelosi's musings were just a Democratic locomotive approaching the sharp curve at a high speed. Just a few days later, the 2 dozen or so presidential contenders who hoped to supplant her as the nation's highest-ranking elected Democrat held their first debate over 2 nights. That's where the positions on immigration really went off the rails. In the opinion of some high-profile opinion columnists whose opinions tend to lean toward the Democrats' worldview. In other words, these are Democrats writing. Andrew Sullivan and also Jeff Greenfield. Sullivan writing in New York Magazine and Greenfield in Politico. These are both left-wing magazines. These are both left-wingers. We're both left.
Yeah,
Funny. They're both left wondering whether the Democrats had lost all touch. We talked about you and I talked about this the other night. Whether the Democrats lost all touch, not just with reality, but with voters outside of their bubble of the party's increasingly radical base. And Sullivan wrote, "I suspect that the Democrats' new position, everyone in the world can become an American if they walk over the border and never commit a crime, is political suicide." Similarly, Jeff Greenfield, another liberal, wrote, "These candidates aren't explicitly advocating open borders, but taken together, their policies advocated amount to almost the same thing. And not just advocating for open borders," observed Greenfield, "but also all matter of free stuff to millions of people who broke the law." And then Julian Castro, who should be familiar with that, said a lot of folks, he admitted that these aren't asylum seekers because a lot of folks that are coming here are not seeking asylum. A lot of them are undocumented immigrants who should be allowed to remain here anyway, he said. And so while there is some disagreement among the president's wannabes whether we should care if all people cross our borders, they all agree pretty much that they should be entitled to free health insurance. And so, whether last week's assertions by the Democratic leadership amount to political suicide will be determined by the voters in a year and a half. What is clear is that this week was a definitive turning point. As Greenfield concluded, Jeff Greenfield, a liberal Democrat, said, right now it seems clear that if either of the past two Democratic presidents had shown up, namely President Obama and President Clinton, had shown up Thursday at the debates and advocated their positions from 5 years ago for Obama and 20 years ago for Clinton, the ones the actual position that actually helped them win a general election, he goes on to say they both would have been booed off the party's own stage. Yeah, if Obama got up and said what he was saying 5 years ago, and Clinton said what he was saying 20 years ago, they would have got booed off the stage. So
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Obama's been quiet lately. Obama's been quiet. He's not endorsing anybody. It's funny because AOC's not really endorsing. I mean, I don't know if I haven't followed much, but she hasn't really given her endorsement either. It's like, see, Carl, again, all of these policies, everything, these globalists are, it's like they're tightening the noose on the Democrats. It's like you either deliver what we want you to deliver, or who knows what's going to happen to them. I'm sorry. I mean, it's got to be said. If these Democrats were to come out and say, hey, look, the globalists have me in a stranglehold, who knows what kind of what would happen? We don't know, because stop and think about it. Why are so many immigrants? I mean, most of these people that are coming across the border, I mean, I think they found a few. They found people from Somalia, people from the Middle East, people from let's see where else, like parts of Africa, not Somalia, but there was another Kenya. Was it Kenya or was it
the Congo, the Congo, the Congo,
yeah, the Congo, yeah,
and Angola, two of the worst places in
yeah.
Africa. I mean, look, the rest of Africa looks down their nose at the Congo and Angola. I mean, if you ask somebody from Ghana
Mm-hmm.
or Nigeria or Kenya or even Uganda about Angola or Congo, they're going to say, ugh. They say like, yeah, don't
Yeah.
go
But
there.
see, yeah. But who knows? But who knows how much? Let's say some of these people are ex-military, or ex something. We don't really know. Some of these people could be, professional drug runners. They could be professional, people who have military training. So it's like it's like these globalists are importing an army into our country, like literally just invading our country. And it's like when the time is right, what are these people going to do? You know what
Yeah,
I'm
you
saying? I
know
mean, it's
what?
entirely
No,
possible. We don't know.
I'll tell you, I don't buy that story. I mean, that could be true. What I buy is that they just want to keep
Mm-hmm.
importing people over and over again, people who don't have European values, who don't think in terms of European standards of civilization, and just come in here and just
Mm-hmm.
create. Like we were talking about the other night. My opinion is that Soros has made the determination that people, when they get into a large group and majority rule, and they form governments, and then you have majority rule, centralized government, is more harmful to people than anarchy. Like if you have anarchy, yeah, maybe you and like a gang of like five of you can go and like control this street and maybe hurt two or three people.
Mm-hmm.
But a centralized government
Mm-hmm.
can round up 6 million people and kill them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he's taken the
Mm-hmm.
position like, okay, let's go to what the philosopher Thomas Hobbes talked about, the state of nature. Let's return to what a quote unquote state of nature, and it'll be safer for society in general. And then he's hoping that in general, then people will become better if they're not in groups. Which is not
Mm-hmm.
far off. Rousseau, another political philosopher, he I think we talked about this. He had like a graph, right? And it showed like a line going up on an angle, then it hits an apex, and it's a very short line. And then the apex, the line then starts going on a downward angle, right? So you got like it's like a
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
triangle. It's like two arms of two legs of a triangle. You got a very short arm, like say an inch long. It hits the apex, and then starts going downward, a very long sloping line down. And that apex represented for Rousseau the rise of man was the short little line, right? Like man was rising,
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
out of the wilderness, leaving the trees, and evolution, and here we are. We're now, yay, we're happy. And that apex is a point where men started to decline, and what Rousseau referred to that as is when men started living in groups. That was the decline of man when we started living in groups together. Because all political philosophers for the
Mhm.
last 5,000 years, since like Moses and Xerxes and everybody, has been trying to figure
Mhm.
out how do people live together in groups when they're not killing each other, but yet they're safe. They're in their individual liberty. They have individual liberties, but they have safety and security internally and safety and security from outside forces. How do you put all those three together at
Mhm.
once? And that's been an ongoing debate, struggle, question for 5,000 years, and there still is no perfect answer.
Mhm.
So Soros, when he
Mhm.
says, "Look, we've never figured it out," and guess what? Because men are not designed to live together in groups, we'll never figure it out. And when they do get together in groups, bad things happen. So let's just keep majority rule out of the picture, create a kind of anarchic situation where the worst case scenario, you have small, maybe very small groups of people working together, but never forming large enough into a large body. So by bringing all these people in without European values or standards, he's hoping that kind of destroys the framework, the American idealism that created this country, the individuality, or even working together in communities, to being self-sufficient, having accountability, responsibility for your own actions, policing yourself, to create the kind of great country that we've become. Um, he's hoping bringing people in from other parts of the world that will kind of destroy that fabric the same fabric that made the Betsy
Mhm.
Ross American flag. It will destroy the fabric of this country.
Yeah.
That's what he's hoping.
Well, it's like, yeah, and then on top of that, you've got Antifa, who we all know. Antifa's been very active lately, and it's not surprising because of the 2020 elections are coming up. And American Joe released it. Well, actually, a few YouTubers have. Axel's been taken down, by the way. I just didn't
I
know if you
saw
knew
that.
that or not.
Yeah, I saw
But
that.
his,
I went
yeah,
over
his
to his
backup
site.
channels.
Yeah,
But
I went over to his site, and it was gone. It said it was
mhm.
terminated for. It said it's like severe violations of hate speech and stuff like that. And then I saw that he had his backup channels
Mhm.
going. It's you know
Mhm.
it's one of those things. It's unfair. He was very popular, getting very
Mhm.
popular. I told him that. I told him based on just the number of live viewers he had, his numbers, his subscriber count was way up there. Like we all know, Mark Dice has more than 1.4 million subscribers. Okay,
Oh yeah.
he's had
Oh yeah.
1.4 million for like
But
literally a year and a half. Okay, well he has more than
yeah.
1.4 million subscribers. Okay, he's probably like Alex
Mhm.
Jones numbers. Okay, and
Mhm.
Axe's numbers were way up there. I thought based on the numbers he was getting on his live view, he probably had about 100,000 subscribers. Okay, and so when you make
Yeah.
that big of a
Yeah.
footprint, you get a lot of attention. So I figured he had about
Well,
100,000
it's like when I
subscribers.
watch. Mhm.
Yeah, I don't care what
It's
they
like when
said
I
he
watch
had.
Mhm. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't care what they said
Well,
he
it's like
had.
when I
He
watch.
had about a hundred
Mhm.
thousand. He had at least 100,000 subscribers, without a doubt.
Yeah. But it's funny how some only certain people can like some people can watch.
But let's be honest, a lot of these guys make a lot of money over here. I mean, we don't. One,
Yeah.
I'm not even monetized. I didn't even monetize my site, and if I had, I wouldn't be making
Uh-huh.
that much. I wouldn't be making that much money on it anyway. So, but the guys who
Mhm.
have, three, 400,000, 500,000, a million subscribers, yeah, they make serious change. These guys, Sargon was making what, 12,000 a month, you know,
Mhm.
15,000 a month. Peterson makes how much a month? I don't know,
Uh-huh.
50,000 a month on off his YouTube channel. I think he was making. So I mean, those guys aren't, those guys say, yeah, we're for we're for free speech, but shit, I'm making a lot of money. And you can't blame them. I mean, we don't want
Mhm.
them to be homeless, right?
Yeah. Well, I think the only one that
Oh wait, hold
well, I
it.
know
Wait, hold it.
Stefan
Hold it.
Hammer.
Hold it.
Well,
Hold it. Hold it.
huh?
Effie writes, they are working on it at BitChute. Oh no shit. Well, I saw that because I looked that up, Effie, when I was getting on it, and I saw these articles talking about, oh, it's in the works, it's in the works. But I saw some articles going back 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, rather. So hopefully it's not just
Mhm.
still in the works. I sent some emails off to BitChute to the support people saying, hey, are you guys planning on doing anything live streaming anytime soon? And I mean, I sent three separate emails to the support team, and I got no responses back. So
Uh-huh.
whatever, you know.
I don't really. Yeah, I don't. I mean, because BitChute's probably going to be because let's face it, these companies, they understand that they can shut their doors down and they'll do it in the name of the New World Order. They will literally destroy their businesses in order to see this one world government happen. But I
Yeah, I
think
mean,
what's going to happen
well,
is big shoot.
you gotta admire that about them. I mean, they're willing to sacrifice
Hmm.
everything for what they believe in. I mean, that's pretty
Yeah.
cool. If you
Oh
think,
yeah. Yeah.
look, we
Yeah.
can totally disagree what they want to end up with, but the fact that, like you said, Soros would be happy if he died completely broke, but he got to see what his vision of the world actually happen. You know,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. So I
Yep.
mean, you got to at least admire that. And then, like when they asked him, which do you have? What did he say? Do you apologize for what you did? Working with the Nazis in World War II? And he looked at the reporter and goes, "No." He just said no, just straight up
Yep.
like no,
Yep.
like he did a Donald Trump on the reporter, like no. And the reporter's like was like
Yeah.
aghast, and he's like, well, he looked at him, the reporter, like, what the fuck you looking at, like it
Yeah.
was like, so I mean, you got to at least admire that. I mean, they believe
Hmm.
in they believe what they're doing so much they willing to give up everything they have for it. That that shows
Hmm.
something, and the guy's not stupid. So I
Yeah.
mean, he's thought this through, and there are philosophers, if you go back in the past, that would support his position. So, and if you look at philosophy in
Yeah.
total over how people, again, philosophy is pretty much how people live together without killing one another, but yet have freedom and everything
Hmm.
else. That whole argument going against each other. Yeah, there is some
Hmm.
basis for what he's trying to accomplish. It's not crazy
Hmm.
because he's trying to say it's
Hmm.
safer if we do it this way than if we do it this way. Because he can say, look,
Hmm.
but people say, oh, he's a communist, and well, he's not. He's not for centralized government. So he's looked at, okay, look at the 20th century. Okay, you have strong centralized governments, the Nazis, Stalin. Say those two. Just pick those two. And there may be Mao. Go to a third one.
Hmm.
Okay, look how many hundreds of millions of people died between the Nazis, Stalin, and Mao with centralized governments. Be able
Hmm.
to, and he
Yeah.
looks at that and goes, YouTube is full blown commie, hoping BitChute takes off soon. Yeah, who let that one on? That's a full blown commie.
Oh, that wasn't. I don't know who wrote that.
Yeah, no quarter,
Oh, yeah. Oh,
okay.
that's no quarter. Yeah. Well, I mean, you have to. See, that's the funny thing too. Like, like Soros has companies that own companies that people don't even know they work for Soros. Same thing with the Koch brothers. The Koch brothers have their hands in the Koch brothers. Like, let's. I don't know their. I don't really follow them or anything, but
Wait, hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it,
some of
hold it,
the
hold it.
clothing
Stop,
lines.
stop, stop. Hold on. No quarter. Sorry, man. I took that comment down myself. Again, I got no strikes on this channel. We're up. We're moving. I can't leave that one up there in the chat room. So hope you understand. If you get mad and you want to leave, I understand too. But I had to take that one down. Sorry. Okay. I hope you understand. All
Oh,
right. Go ahead. Go ahead.
oh. Like what was it? The like because like let's say like some clothing lines, right? Koch brothers might have companies that have business ties or might even own those companies that people don't even know they're working for the Koch brothers. Maybe not directly, but the Koch brothers have a say in what happens in that company,
Oh no no
right?
they
Well,
purposely don't want people to know what, like Brawny. They don't want you to know they own Brawny. They don't want you to know that. Once I found out they own Brawny, I stopped buying Brawny paper towels. They don't want you to know the companies
mhm,
they own. Okay, they do that on purpose.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay,
mhm,
so yeah, that's why I now I mean the company I buy it from, Bounty, I think that's Procter and Gamble, so I'm not doing much better. But unless I guess I want to start
mhm,
making my own paper towels, I'm kind of stuck with who I got. So I don't know who owns
yeah,
Bounty. I guess I go look and see who the main parent company is, but I'm sure it's no friend of ours either. But I made it a point to
yeah.
stop supporting the Koch brothers whenever I can.
Well, the Koch brothers, they're the funny thing about them was it seemed like they kind of
Wait,
support the
hold it, hold it, hold
neocons
it,
like
hold
the
it, hold it.
John
Wait,
Bolton.
hold it, hold it, hold it. Yeah, no quarter, totally agree. Yeah, proves the point. Yep, totally. Yep. Yeah, yeah, like I said, I have zero. I've never had a single strike on this site. I
Mhm.
keep my comment section is gone. It's like it's not there. So the chat room, I keep it really
Oh
clean.
yeah, no.
Yeah, yeah. So
Oh yeah, yeah.
again, we're up, we're running. We get to get our message across, and that's what we're doing. So sorry, guys. But anyway, yep.
Exactly. Yeah, we got to do it by their rules too. I mean, that's why I call for the just real quick before I continue. That's
Yeah.
why 85% of my one-liners are kept appropriate. You know what I'm saying? Wherever I post them. You know what I'm saying?
Oh well, yeah, no,
Occasionally
that no,
branch
that
out, but
just
I
no,
never use.
well, no, that's
Yeah.
just courtesy to the host. It's like when I go on somebody else's site, I don't go, oh, okay, I'm on their site now. I can say stuff I want to say on my
Mm-hmm.
site. No, no way in hell. No, I'm not gonna. That's their site. I mean, hey, I support them. I want them to stay up. I want them to keep going. I was really upset what they did to Axe. But he's got a second site going
Yeah.
right now, so hopefully, they don't do anything to that. Because
Mm-hmm.
I've said it on my channel, and I've
Mm-hmm.
said it when I've called into his channel. He's the best. He's the best at getting our message out. Because see, a lot of people
Yes, he is.
go to his site for the humor. I don't go to his site for the humor. I
Mhm.
go to his site for the in-depth analysis that he gives because he does a lot of
Yeah.
research. People think like he just gets up there and is
Yeah.
like, "Yay!" No, no. I mean, you can tell by the way he links different stories together, and I know that what that takes to do that, and the way he deep dives into stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He's really well versed on politics and news and just social issues. He's really well. That's why
Mm-hmm.
I first like you and I were on his site back when he just started. That's why I was on his site when he
Yeah.
first started because I liked his analysis, and the humor was just a
Mm-hmm.
bonus for me. It's like the humor has always just been a bonus for me. The main thing was his analysis that I liked, and I told him that I said, look, you do it better than any of us do because you know the topics, and I said it on his site, I said it on my site. In order to make things funny, you really have to know your topic well. You have to know it backwards
Yeah.
and forwards. You have to know the issues backwards and forwards, and he does. He knows those issues backwards and forwards,
Mm-hmm.
which allows him the ability, the time to be able to be funny. I can't do that. I told him I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't be funny like that.
I
But he is.
I like when Axe talk. Mhm. Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, I was gonna say I won't say this directly, but when I mentioned when he talks about the plantation, you get what you know when I say that word, you know what I'm talking about. Well, when he talks
Yeah.
about that and how he puts it, it's hilarious. I mean, it's just unbelievably hilarious, But I watch X on BitChute anymore. I really don't watch him on YouTube, because when I watch him on BitChute, it's not buffering. I can watch the whole thing. I don't have to worry about adjusting the volume, you know. But anyway, the thing about the Koch brothers is that they back the war hawks like John Bolton, your John Boltons of the world. They they back those rhino Republicans. That they're the warmongers. They like to because I don't know how big I don't know if the Koch brothers have any hands in any of the like any military contracts that I'm sure they do. They've got to.
Oh, I'm
But
sure. Yeah, I'm sure
they're
I'm sure they have
they like
military. Go ahead.
yeah, but they're the ones that back the war hawks, and now you've got the Democrats who are, it's like that video where Pelosi and Schumer were caught dancing. Well, I don't know how true it is, but they were caught dancing in the parking lot. Oh, Trump's going to attack Iran, ha ha. It's kind of suspicious that Iran all of a sudden shoots down one of our drones. And it's like somebody told them to do that. Probably one of the globalists told them to do it because those globalists have a huge presence in all those Middle East countries. That's it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. Because these radical countries like Iran are willing to start trouble if
Well,
the
it could have not even. I could be even more cynical. It could have been the Chinese telling him to do it
yeah, that's true too.
because that would cause Trump a lot of problems in the Middle East. He wouldn't be able to focus as much on China and North Korea, and if he was all tied up in Iran, he may be willing to say, okay, look, I don't have time to deal with the Chinese right now. Okay, look, just give us a deal, a bad deal, any deal. Let's just sign it and get it done because I got to take care of this shit over here. I mean, that could and not to
Mm-hmm.
mention, how we got North Korea to the negotiating table way back a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, remember now, President Z called. This was a weird one. It got reported a little bit. I covered it. He called President Kim Jong. He called Kim over to Beijing at like midnight for an emergency meeting. And this was after Trump had sent four
Mm-hmm.
aircraft carrier battle groups over to the South China Sea and had sent bomber groups over to South Korea and to Guam. And then suddenly at midnight, Xi calls Kim, and Kim is immediately on a plane flying to Beijing for an emergency meeting, not on the phone, in person, face to face. And then shortly thereafter that meeting, it was announced they're going to be doing the meeting in Singapore. So my guess is that now I speculated as to what I thought happened, and what I thought happened was that they sent one of those Trident nuclear submarines over there with like the 32 missiles with like multiple warheads on them, and they knew when the Chinese
Mhm.
satellite was going to be flying over, and they kind of came up, to where they could be seen from that satellite. They surfaced, which they're not supposed to do. My guess is he had that subsurface so the Chinese could see it was there. It was a Trident nuclear submarine with 32 missiles on it and umpteen warheads. I think it's times 5 or times 10, and let the Chinese know this thing's parked right offshore. This guy does one thing out of line, we're taking out his whole fucking country. And it'll happen so quick he won't know
Mhm.
what hit him. Literally, those missiles can go from that sub to their targets within what, 7 minutes, 6 minutes, some really quick number like that.
Mhm.
So that suddenly there was
Yeah.
an emergency meeting. He flies all the way to Beijing on emergency, comes back, and suddenly they're doing the Singapore meeting. So now we're limited on how many what our assets are. We only have so many aircraft carrier battle groups and stuff, and if we have to divert them over to the Middle East and to deal with Iran, then we don't have them in the South China Sea to deal with the Chinese and North Korea. So that could have been the Chinese saying, "Yeah, shoot it
Yeah.
down," and maybe Trump will take the bait because he's crazy, right? But Trump is not crazy. Trump is
Mhm.
really smart,
Yeah.
and to
Yeah.
me, it was more than
He,
just
mhm.
when he said that we were going to kill 150 people. That's why I didn't do it. I think that was part of the reason. The other big reason was I don't have the time to be involved in a land war in the Middle East right now. I got bigger things to do.
Yeah.
I'm trying to create a really great economy, and this ain't going to do it. Okay, this is not going to
Yeah.
do it. I'm trying to deal with the Chinese right now. I don't have the time to deal with the Iranians. And somebody, Matt Gates, I think, brought it up. Your guy from Florida. He was on
Mhm.
Sean Hannity's show when the former congressman from Utah was on sub-hosting for him,
Mhm.
and he said, the entire
Mhm.
GDP of the Middle East is only 3.5% of the entire world's gross domestic product, all of the Middle East
Yeah.
combined. And he said China. I think he said
Mhm.
China accounts for something like 12% of the world's GDP or 15%. He goes, so why do we give a shit about the Middle
Mhm.
East? And he had a good
Yeah.
point.
Well, not only that, but look,
And Trump understands
look
that
at what.
too.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm. Well, it's like, look at what China's doing to people of middle, the people from the Middle East who are living in their country. I think there was a thing that they had rounded them up, right, or something like that, and put them in some kind of a what was it? I'm sorry, I should have probably read that story. Um, where they had, I guess something about them being like, God, hold on, let me see if I can find the article. I'm sorry, because I don't want to comment on something that
rounded who up? Who are you talking about?
like the Middle East, like there were some Muslims that were living over there. And let me see if I can find the article. Hold on, it won't take me but one second.
Migrants that were living over there.
Yeah, so yeah, there was let me see, there was let me see, I'll get it up here.
Oh
Um,
wait. Yeah, no. While you're looking for that, hold on. Let me ask you a question. Yeah, what was that deal with Pence? He went. He was called to the White House, and it was called the D.C. And
oh,
then Putin
mhm,
held a special private meeting, security meeting, and the European Union met some secret security meeting all at the same time, and everybody was speculating as to what it was. I saw a black conservative patriot said he thought it was, they're going to arrest Clinton, so they all had a, some big thing. But I was speculating it was because of aliens. The aliens were getting ready to invade or something. I mean, there's all these stories going
mhm,
around because it all happened at the same time. So
mhm.
yeah, Effie, have you heard any more on that news? I didn't see anything covered by any of the outlets, the cable news outlets tonight, about everybody suddenly having to be called back to D.C. or Brussels or Moscow or wherever for some kind of
Yeah, Black conservative patriot. I have that on my watch list. I haven't watched it yet, but yeah, I heard something about that on the Black conservative patriot.
Yeah, no, I watch his
Um,
show often, but he's always talking about somebody's getting arrested yesterday and it never happened. So it's like at some point,
mhm,
yesterday better become tomorrow. I'm just waiting for that to happen.
mhm,
Hey, I like the way H.A. Goodman approaches it. He approaches it more of a measured, like he says, look, I'm not saying
yeah,
when somebody's going to get indicted. I'm not saying who's going to get indicted. But I'm saying there's a grand jury
Mm-hmm.
sat, and somebody's going to get indicted. Durham's the kind of guy.
Yeah.
Like I was talking about Durham, like he reminds me of myself in a way. He's kind of like a real dick, and like I
Mm-hmm.
have a few friends, and Durham has no friends. He doesn't like. You can tell. You just look at him, you can
Uh,
tell he doesn't like anybody. He doesn't care about anybody. That's exactly the kind of guy you want doing that. And that was a great move that Barr said, hey, because shithead. Our former attorney general, the little guy from Alabama. What's his name? Who was our former attorney general that Trump fired? Who's the little short guy? What's his
oh,
name? Why is it like escaping me? Oh
oh,
damn! I know. Shit. Hold on. Who was that? Uh, Hold on. Let me see if I can find it real quick. What's his? I mean, I know his name. Let's
mhm.
see.
I did find that story about the Muslims in China. But no, no, go ahead, go ahead.
I know. But this is like uh, attorney general. Well, this bar. Uh,
Barr's going to be the Democrats' worst nightmare.
yeah, I
He's
know. But
going to be Clinton's worst
who was the damn
nightmare.
who's the damn former attorney general? Who was the name? Why am I forgetting his name already?
Let me see if I can find it.
Oh, Jeff Sessions. Thank
Let me
you,
see.
Jeff Sessions.
Oh yeah,
See,
yeah.
see,
Oh yeah,
Sessions.
yeah,
See, the
yeah.
guy Sessions appointed to do this was kind of like a loser. He was just kind of like.
Hmm.
Real. He knew that Sessions appointed him because he didn't want. He appointed somebody who knew he wasn't going to do that much, and so he appointed this guy out of Utah, and he knew that he wasn't going to do that much. He was kind of Romney kind of guy, and of course he didn't give a shit. So
Hmm.
then when Barr gets in and he looks at
Yeah.
like what this guy's doing, which was like nothing. Like, hey, what have you done so far? Oh,
Hmm.
I got a few leads. And he said, "Fuck that." So of course he knew of Durham. He knew Durham's a dick, and he investigated the CIA for both Bush and Obama, and he just hates everybody.
Hmm.
He doesn't care who he investigates. And he said, okay, you're in charge. And then, like, this guy, he's already had a grand jury set. That's why I like the way H.A. Goodman approaches the story because it's like, look, we don't know everything that's going on, but, it's not like every day somebody's getting arrested. It's like this guy's going to take his time. He's going to be methodical. He's going to get to the bottom of this, figure out how this whole thing started, what was really going on. And hopefully he does find out. I hope it's that he does because I think it's true that this was just mainly to provide
Hmm.
real time intel to the Clinton campaign. Because again, they had that Stefan
Hmm.
Halper guy involved in it, and Stefan Halper was the guy who stole Jimmy Carter's debate preparation materials for Ronald Reagan back in 1980. So I'm thinking this is like the same.
Hmm.
They're doing the same operation. Hey, look, there's Fred. Hey, Fred, how you
Yeah.
doing, man? Hey, Fred, good seeing you, man.
Uh, but oh, Carl, I got that. Okay, I'll just read this real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
But what? Okay, this was from the New York Times in 2018, December 18th. But this is what I remember reading. China's detention camps for Muslims turn to forced labor, and then they have the picture of these Middle Eastern kids. It says Chinese state television showed Muslims attending classes on how to be law-abiding citizens. Evidence is
Oh, yeah,
emerging that
yeah.
detainees. That was what I was talking about
Oh, okay,
when I was
okay,
talking
right,
about that.
right, right. Yeah, Effie and
Yeah.
I were talking about that one night. I pulled up a
Um.
couple of stories on that. Effie loves America.
Mhm.
We were talking about that one night, and
Mhm.
basically what it was like, figuring out, do we like this? Do we not like it? Do we not like detention camps, slash concentration camps, slash
Mhm.
re-education camps, slash China doesn't want to turn into Europe, and it was a whole balancing kind of thing we were going through. It's like, but China just said, look, we're not going there, and we're not going to have terrorism in our country. We're not going to
Yeah.
have, we're
Yeah.
not going to have Islam in our country. It ain't happening. It's like shit. They don't let Christians in. I mean, there are Christians there,
Mhm.
and there are Christian churches and organizations. And don't get me wrong. In fact, I knew one guy from 20 years ago. His group was over there doing all kinds of things and with adoptions and everything else. So I mean, they're there and they're doing stuff. But the Christians that go over there
Mhm.
don't make any. They don't cause anybody any grief. But
Yeah.
Muslims, they cause grief wherever they go, and they're like, well, we're not doing that. In fact, it was an interesting story.
Mhm.
Here, hold on, let me pull it up. We can talk about it too. We'll talk about your story, then we'll just dovetail, which will dovetail nicely into. Hold on, let me get here. There we go. Let me. We'll talk. Let me pull this one
It's.
story up,
Mhm.
and it'll dovetail nicely into your story here. Hold on. Okay. All right. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, real quick, like, this unholy alliance that the Chinese have with the globalists and the federal government or the Federal Reserve. It's like it's like it seems like even though they're forming an alliance, it's like backwards tactics that they're using to try and bring down our economy. It's like you would think that they'd be a little bit more coordinated. Like China was supposed to buy up a lot of our debt, which means they would have had more influence on our lives and on our political system. But then they ran into problems too, so it didn't happen. And Trump jump started our economy, just in the nick of time to make us, in a better position than China, which means we have more of the negotiating power than China does when it comes to
Right.
tariffs, taxation, trade.
Well, here's the problem with their plan. If their plan was to get the Chinese to buy up our debt so they have more control over us, they forgot a couple of things along the way. One, like right now, our national debt is 100% of our yearly GDP. Our yearly GDP is
Hmm.
$20 trillion. Our national debt is $20 trillion. We're at 100%. The Chinese, their national debt is 150% of their annual GDP. So they're in more debt than we are. Two, they didn't realize when they were buying up our debt how dependent they were going to be on those interest payments we're making to them, and that if they quote unquote wanted to say we're not going to loan you any more money, and we say, well, good, we're not going to pay you back any more money, it would collapse the entire Chinese
Hmm.
economy. They didn't realize how dependent the Chinese economy would be on us borrowing money and paying the interest payments to them, because that's all we're paying is just the
Hmm.
interest on the loan. We're not paying anything down towards principal. So if
Yeah.
if that was their master plan, boy, they sure fucked that one up because China, there's no way in hell China can stop loaning us money. If they say we're not going to loan you any more money, we just say good, we're not going to pay you. We're going to nationalize the debt, and that tomorrow the Hong Kong markets are going to be down around zero. I don't care how much money the Chinese
Hmm.
try to infuse. And see, the way the Chinese beef up their markets is that, like when we try to say do an infrastructure plan, it takes how many months to get it through Congress, and everybody's yelling about where the money's going to go. Well, when they do like a
Hmm.
stimulus plan, they'll actually just buy up stocks of private companies to keep their stock prices artificially high. That's how they keep their stock market from
Hmm.
crashing, or they'll devalue their currency, that kind of thing to make their exports cheaper for us to buy overseas and
Hmm.
make our imports more expensive. So they do it like fast,
Hmm.
because it's their
Yeah.
communist socialist country. They can just go zap. They can just do it. But yeah, they are totally
Yeah.
dependent of they are totally dependent upon us to keep paying the
Hmm.
interest. If we stop doing that, their entire system literally it collapses.
Well,
I mean,
they
right
want to
now.
bring Mhm. They want to bring Hong Kong. I don't know much about that part of the world, but I've studied some bits and pieces here and there. But they want to bring Hong Kong into. They want to bring Hong Kong fully into under Chinese control, under communist Chinese control. And I was watching. I think New World Order of the Times was covering this on his live show, where the what was it? The citizens of Hong Kong took over the government building. I think the police have regained control, but that right there kind of tells you that people of Hong Kong, they're not gonna. Hopefully, nothing in the manner of running over people with tanks happens. God forbid that happens. But I think China, they're trying to solidify their total grip on Hong Kong, because if they do that, wouldn't they have? They would have more of a stable economy, wouldn't they? Because I mean, Hong Kong's economy has always been pretty good for that part of the
Yeah,
world.
I'll be honest with you. I don't know how much control they have over right now. I mean, I remember the British gave it back in what 1997,
Mhm.
99, whatever year it was. They had it.
Yeah.
They signed a peace agreement. And they're supposed to give it back 150 years later or whatever it was, and they gave it back,
Yeah.
and everybody was all crying, whatever. But I don't know how much control they have. I don't know how much autonomy Hong Kong actually has. I don't know how integrated it is into the Chinese economy. I don't know. I mean, it's not like Taiwan that's completely separate. So
Yeah.
I haven't studied that issue a lot myself, to be honest with you. It doesn't really concern me.
Hmm.
If China takes over Hong Kong tomorrow, I don't know if that causes me any concern. I lose any sleep over it.
Hmm.
I think they pretty much have influence and
Yeah.
control over it. These people are like living a pipe dream, in my opinion, thinking they're going to be semi-autonomous from mainland China. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think it's gonna happen. I mean, sorry, you're
Hmm.
part of China now. and that's just the way it is. If you didn't
Yeah.
want to be, then you'd be
Well,
like Taiwan and have a army, a navy, air force, whatever. But yeah, there you go.
Hong Kong, I think, is still more capitalist. But anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bring that up. But go ahead. On this story that you brought up, Trump doubles Obama's level of. Because I didn't mean to get involved in that
Yeah,
other
no, no,
topic. I'm
no,
sorry.
no, no. That's good because it dovetails nicely in this one. As far as what's what China's doing with what they're trying to do with Muslims. What the reason why the numbers are up 80% for Christians is because he decreased the number of Muslim refugees coming over. With the whole travel ban
Yeah.
and everything else. So here, tell you what, we'll go ahead and talk about this right now. So here, stay on the phone. All right. So Trump doubles
Okay.
Obama levels of Christian refugees welcomed in U.S. now 80%. So let's see here. Yep. Here we go. Up. Here we go. The Trump administration has ended the surge of Muslim refugees into the United States during the Obama era, because that's what he wanted, Obama, significantly boosting the percentage of Christians accepted into the country. At the end of the Obama administration, not only were more refugees being let into the country, but the levels of Muslims and Christians were nearly level, 43% Muslim, 47% Christian. The year before that, it was 44% Christians and 46% Muslim. In the last year, according to state and homeland security data analyzed by the Migration Policy Institute, 16% were Muslim. Okay, so in just this last year, 2018, fiscal year, maybe October, whatever, 2018 till now. Okay, so the new numbers are 16% Muslim and 80% Christian. So he made a big shift. So the
Yeah.
shift came after the White House put new vetting requirements on Muslims and refugees coming from warring areas in the Middle East and after Christian groups pressed the administration for help. It also came as the White House cut the Obama era goal of letting 110,000 refugees into the country every year. It dropped that by 73% to just over 26,000, cuts that impacted refugees of all religions. The Institute, touting a study in an email newsletter sent out Tuesday, also noted that in a first, Canada, and not the United States, is now the top home for world's newest refugees. Since the Trump administration's travel ban and additional vetting procedures were implemented in 2017, Muslim refugees represented just 16%, 3,495 individuals of all those resettled in 2018. The first 7 months of fiscal year 2019 have followed a similar pattern, and Muslim refugees make up 16% of the 14,000 resettled as of April 30th. Ta-da!
Wow.
Yeah.
I wonder. It's curious. I wonder how many of those 80% of Christians are Afrikaners fleeing the violence in Africa, like where the government was seizing their lands, and a lot of those Afrikaners were left in like camps and just like run down, worse than trailer park conditions, communities that were springing up because they had nothing, and the government was neglecting them. I wonder how many of them made it over here under that under the new under this new bill that or this new thing that Trump has done.
Wait, would you want to know if what? What was the question?
Well, like no, the refugees, like the Christian refugees. I wonder how many of them were white Africans. Because remember, I think it was like last year. You don't really hear much about it anymore. OENN had broken the story a few times.
Oh,
Where
from like from South Africa.
Yeah, South Africa. I'm sorry, I should have made that.
My
Yeah,
guess, my
I wonder how
guess would
many of them.
my guess would be probably not many at all. I'm taking a guess.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably because the groups that were yelling the most were the ones that Tulsi Gabbard's went over and talked to in Syria. Remember, she went over there and it was her and a Republican. I can't remember who the Republican she went with. Two members of Congress. They went over to Syria and they met with and Tulsi caught shit because she actually met with um, why am I my head? Oh, Bashar Assad, and had dinner with him,
Uh-huh.
right? Because she's over there trying to get something done. Oh, you had dinner with this terrible guy. It's like, yeah, I'm trying to get access and I'm trying to get something done over here, and yeah, I'm gonna meet with this guy, and sure enough, she did, and she was able to show the plight of all the Christians over there in Syria who are being killed by the ISIS people. Literally being killed, raped,
Yeah.
butchered, tortured. So if I had to take a guess, my answer would be no, not from South Africa, strictly from the Middle East, like Syria, Lebanon, most likely probably
Mm-hmm.
Syria. because a lot of Christian groups were
Uh-huh.
yelling and screaming, saying, "Hey, we can't get in because under Obama, if you were a Christian, well, they didn't like you, they didn't care about you, you didn't have a
Mhm.
voice." And it's funny, and
Mhm.
when Gabbard went over there, she went over there pretty much with the permission of the Trump administration, and because Trump was like, "Yeah, go," because probably under Obama, she probably couldn't get over there to talk to anybody.
Mhm.
He's right.
I wish more. I mean, and it's funny because like people, and I've heard people say like, well, you know, every single Muslim is radical, and that's not true. Like, it's like Brigitte Gabriel. She she speaks out against radical Islam all the time. I mean, she's in fact they hate her. They don't even like the Brotherhood of the Muslim. They don't like Brigitte Gabriel. There's also this other story too that doesn't seem like it gets much attention. Is that there's actually, and I'm punching it up right now, is Muslim Reform Institute, like here's their mission. The mission of the Muslim Reform Institute is to promote and develop moderate Muslim thinking in the world and sow the seed for a forward-looking Muslim trend, a trend that recaptures a true spirit of Islam. It's like the scope right here is the scope of the Muslim Reform Institute is to provide ideas as a think tank in countering the extremist narrative of Islam on a if I'm saying that word right, theoretical front. We will analyze and debate origins and manifestations of extremism. On the particular front, we will provide forums on discussion on how extremism impacts the Muslim family and Muslim community. And let me see, the MRI will sponsor studies, polls, analysis, any political, social, or theological issue that is associated with Islam or distorts Islam through extremist narratives within the scope of MRI. Then they go into categories, vision. But see, you don't really see, I mean, there's things like this out there that exist. Just people have to understand that not every single Muslim is radical, but what we need is more of these. We need more Brigitte Gabriels, people like her that are not afraid to speak out against radical Islam. People that, say, hey, look, not everything in Islam. I don't know anything about the Quran. I don't, but you need people to show the benefits of coexisting with other religions. And it's like there was that video that was released where they had those kids. I forget what state it was in, but those kids that were singing, they were praising, they were praising their God. They were singing the song, there was, I think it was about reclaiming Palestine or something like that song, right? But, it's this kind of radicalization that people need to speak out against, in that, but we're so indoctrinated, the left is so indoctrinated with identity politics that it's going to take people of Islam, actual people from the Middle East who preach Islam to speak to those who are radicalized. Hey, look, maybe, there's more to life than just,
Yeah, but
doing.
Bill Maher covered this pretty good, and he was talking about different like Pew Research polling and stuff like that. And so he was saying, well,
Mhm,
okay, who are the moderate Muslims? Because when you look at polling from different Muslim countries, they believe in honor killing, meaning if your
yeah.
sister
Mhm,
or your daughter,
mhm,
fornicates with like an infidel or something, you can
mhm.
kill her. Okay,
Carl?
they believe in all
Oh,
they believe in jihad if somebody speaks bad against the prophet, that kind of stuff. But like the numbers were out of off the charts, as far as like
yeah.
60%, 70%. So the question was like, okay, who are these moderates that you're talking about, and where are they? Where see the problem
Yeah.
is with see Christianity went through the Reformation, right? Martin Luther. And Protestantism, protest Protestantism, so the Christianity
Mhm,
went through the Reformation. It did some self reflection, not by its not wanting to, but it was kind of forced to, right, by people leaving the Catholic Church and saying, hey, the Catholic Church
mhm,
had grown to a point where it had a lot of excesses and it was dogmatic and it wasn't allowing, the Renaissance could have never really happened without. Um, the Reformation, without Protestantism, because if we were stuck where who the Galileo getting locked up for saying by saying there's gravity, and that the Earth is not the center of the universe, the sun is, you know, that we'd still be in the dark ages. Okay, we'd still be walking around bumping into each other. And forget cell phones, we wouldn't have anything. So Islam
Mm-hmm.
has never gone through that. Now Islam is a little bit younger than we are, so they're like 500 years behind us. So maybe it's going to take a while before that happens. But it doesn't seem like it's going to happen anytime soon. And then, as long as people in this country and in Europe keep enabling them to keep preaching their radical positions and then not critiquing them or
Mm-hmm.
putting some pushback against them, they have no reason to change. If everybody's out
Yeah.
there kissing their ass and calling it ice cream, then it's like, well, yeah, why should we change? Now, if you tell them, like the Chinese are doing, no, we're not going to let you in, or we tell them, look,
Mm-hmm.
we're not down with this bullshit, and you can either
Mm-hmm.
join European civilized society or stay the fuck out. They're going to keep.
Yeah.
There's no reason for them to reform. There's not going to be a big push to do it
Mm-hmm.
because what's the benefit? There is no
Yeah.
there's no benefit to reforming, and there's no downside to not reforming. So it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like that video that was released a while back. With that Somalian guy speaking in German, how he says, "Well, we know how your system works. We take your women. Your police make a report. They finally make a report. It's because Merkel and her administration have enabled these people to just come in, and they've given them special protections that if they do anything against German citizens, it's like they're immune from certain prosecution. They might go to jail for a week or two, or maybe a fine or something. But you're right. I mean, they've enabled this for so long. I mean, I think right now there's hope for Germany, there's hope for France, but the UK, in my opinion, they're done for. I pray not, I hope not, but they signed that. What was it? The migration take where they're going to take in so many migrants, and it's supposed to happen by 2020. And if they do that, their entire way of life is gone. I mean, it's not going to. The UK is. We won't even recognize it in the next few years. You
Oh
know,
no, people say when they go to
and it.
London. No, who was I was listening to somebody's live show, and it was a couple of. I think it was like a liberal and a conservative talking, and they were talking about how London isn't London anymore, and it's not. It's really London isn't English anymore. It's really not. They walk down the streets. It doesn't appear to be like it's an English.
Mhm.
Oh, I think they said it wasn't an English city anymore. And like that's how
No,
bad it's
no.
gotten.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
flew through London and I stepped outside to smoke some cigarettes out at the airport. But that was my only. I didn't go into London. I didn't have time to do that. So I don't know. I don't know what it was
Mhm.
like compared to what it is now. I don't know. I haven't been there on the ground, so I don't know what it's like. But it sounds like it's pretty freaking awful. You know, just based on everything.
Yeah.
I mean, when they have a higher murder rate than New York City, things are getting bad. And when they have complete gun control and people are even the murder rate was with the use primarily of knives and acid. And you get that high murder
Mhm.
rate in that city, and it's worse than New
Yeah.
York City. You know somebody's not doing their job. You know.
Yeah. Well, it's like and speaking of it's like with here, that probably won't. What's happening in London won't happen here because Americans are armed to the hilt. I mean, there are over what I've heard like 300 million to 100 million gun owners. But I don't know when they say that. I don't know if they're talking about registered gun owners or just people who own guns legally and illegally. I mean, and that's why the left is so desperate to get rid of the guns, in this country. It's like, it's funny because, not to bounce around the subject, I'm sorry, but it all ties into what we're talking about. I know that, I don't know if it was actually somebody in the NRA or somebody, but, I made a comment one time I forget whose channel it was, and it was like, I wish the NRA would get more aggressive defending our freedoms and, opposing red flag laws, right? And then somebody said, like, we do. That was the only thing they said was we do. I wasn't directly criticizing them. I just said I wish, based on an opinion that I have a right to have, But it's like, and I know I've defended the NRA many times, but now that I'm kind of thinking about it, it's like, what is it really that they're doing? I mean, have the left infiltrated them? I mean, I know that they've come under, a lot of attacks lately, and it's like they're not prepared to deal with this onslaught of attacks. Like you look at Judicial Watch, right? I know that they're separate companies, but I mean, I'm sorry, separate organizations, but they're both on the same side. Judicial Watch is hammering, um, the deep state, these people who work, the deep state puppets, lawsuit after lawsuit after. I mean, they are aggressively going after these people. Why can't the NRA do the same thing with our gun laws, protecting our gun laws? And it's like, I mean, I'm not saying that they don't do it,
Well, I
but
think what's
you would
happened.
think that,
Well, I think it's one of those things. It's like any kind of company. I would imagine is like there was a lot of people call it politics. I always when people say oh it's all politics, to me that means it's all ego. Who's in charge,
yeah,
who's close to the seat of power. How many feet is your office
hmm
away from like the chairman or the president's. And I mean all that
hmm
infighting over like wanting to be in charge when the goal should be wanting to protect Americans' rights. And people get too caught
hmm
up in that, and they think about themselves more than they start thinking about why they joined to begin with, and why they worked their ways
yeah,
up through the NRA, got to the top, been in leadership, and they lose track of what they were there for. And that
yeah,
happens. That happens with
hmm
any organization. Like this, like what
yeah,
was that guy's name? Lapierre buying all those suits and
up here,
shit, and
yeah,
yeah, he was. I
hmm
forgot how many he paid some crazy number for suits and clothing, and it
yeah,
was all on the NRA's bill. I mean, they lose track of why they're there, and so unfortunately,
yeah,
I think that's what happened with them. I don't know why their lobbying effort hasn't been working better. I don't know. The left did a good job of painting them as evil people, but they could
yeah.
have countered that if they were. I think if they were more unified, they probably could have countered that better. But for whatever reason, they weren't
Yeah.
able to.
See, and that's the thing, Carl. Like our side, we are so plagued with people who want to make money off of what's going on, and no, it's like very like Axel. Axel's in it for the cause. You're in it for the cause. Derek Grayson's in it for the cause. Jericho Green, Kevin's Corner, Stexenhammer, Tim Cast, these are, I mean, just to name a few of, conservative, well, just content creators who have
Mm-hmm.
right-leaning thinking, right? You can tell they're in it for the cause by the way they talk. I mean, they're not always going to agree, but at least they're trying to get the message out, And we are so plagued with people who want to be famous and want to do this, and it irritates. It irritates me. I mean, it's like me, for example. Okay, I'm famous. I'm not saying I'm not, but I know what I do with my fame. I try to get the message out, and I use humor doing that. And like I said, I'm trying to help smaller channels grow who I feel are getting the message out, and they're growing. They are growing.
Well, no, it's
And
funny. It's funny how
it's
we
like,
were. It's funny how we're talking about that. It's like right, people who are in favor of the cause more than they're in favor of themselves, right? More people who
yeah,
who
yeah,
who think about moving the cause forward and sacrificing, say, time or money or whatever to get it done, versus people looking just to make a buck. Or to be famous,
yeah,
or to have power, or to have influence. Like we were talking
yeah,
about earlier with George Soros. Trust me, George Soros would like for his name never to be mentioned in the press at all. Okay, he only had to do
yeah,
he only had to do interviews recently because his name was getting mentioned by everybody else all the time, and he figured, well, I better. At some point, somebody said to him, "Look, you better do some interviews because you want the press on your side. So if you give them access, that's
hmm
how you get them on your side. It's like if you go to D.C. and you say,
hmm
well, I'm just not going to talk to the press. Well, that's their money they're talking about. They need the stories, they need the access, they need you on camera. And if you say I'm never going to talk to you, well then they'll find some bad stories to write about you, and they'll sink you.
hmm
So I mean, Soros would have loved to have been one of those guys behind the scenes. Nobody knows who the hell he is. Nobody knows he's the one pulling all the
hmm
strings. He still hides it really well. I mean, by all these LLCs and
hmm
nonprofits and stuff. But he's one of
yeah,
those guys who really believes in his cause and doesn't care if he even gets credit for it as long as it happens. And
yeah,
it's a certain kind of purity that what's the word? Not just purity. I'm thinking of another word, but
spiritually
it,
too. Yeah,
well, or just dedicated. He's more dedicated to his cause than he is to himself. And like you were saying last time
yeah,
and this time, he'd be happy if he died penniless as long as he got to see the fulfillment of his ideas become a reality. And
yeah.
and unfortunately,
And
when you like with the NRA, I think what happened was you had people in there who got used to the private planes, used to the clothing, used to the per diem,
mm,
used to the high salaries, used to the nice houses. They get used to that.
mm,
And they forget when they
yeah,
first started, like Wayne Lapierre was probably a real fighter when he first got in there. Like, oh, we got to fight for this, fight for this. And then he got to the point where, hey, I'm
mm,
making a lot of money. Hey, I got a pretty nice lifestyle. Hey, this is fun. Hey, I'm going to get mine. Hey, I want more. I want more and more and
mm,
more. Like he's hanging out with gun manufacturers, real wealthy people, and he's going to their houses and he's
yeah,
eating their food,
mm,
and he's like, well, shit, this is nice. I want this.
yeah.
So
But see,
it's hard. It's
look at
hard to lose. It's like a breakup of a band. Like
mhm,
who becomes famous, who becomes more
mhm,
famous in fighting. The
yeah.
same thing.
Mhm. But see, Tom Fenton seems to be able. He's good at staying away from that, and that's why people like Tom Fenton. Because Tom Fenton, he makes the video. I mean, I'm sure other people in Judicial Watch and the Amicus Society make the. I think the Amicus Society is tied with Judicial Watch, but I'm not sure. I haven't seen their videos in a while. But Tom Fenton, he's in the fight. He's not just in the background. He's in the fight, and he seems to, he seems his character, like he's got a no nonsense character. You can tell that, but he's also got a hey, look, I know what it's like to be in these shoes. So he's not just the chairman. He's actually in there doing the investigation. He does he gets the information out. He makes the videos. He speaks very well for Judicial Watch, and that's why my NRAs have been going to Judicial Watch lately because Judicial Watch needs, like you donate like $100, it's gone. You donate $1,000, it's gone because they're constantly paying. They got to bring in lawyers, they got to hire lawyers, and they also got to find lawyers who are willing to take on the deep state like that. And sometimes these lawyers may not want to do it for, I don't know what they pay lawyers, but they may want a fairly handsome fee for doing it. But you know what? If that's what it takes to expose these people, so be it.
Well, Judicial
Because
Watch.
we need.
I guarantee that the attorneys that work for Judicial Watch are getting paid a pretty decent amount of money. I mean, if you're gonna deep dive into cases like that, that is pretty much your entire practice. I mean, you have to.
Mhm,
People always say, "Oh, gee, Carl, like, let's sue YouTube." It's like, hey, will you take that on? It's like, yeah. Do you have a couple of $1 million laying around for me to hire all the staff and all the staff attorneys I'm going to need? Because it's like,
yeah.
well, like for instance, when what's his name? Just went against Google and YouTube, and he filed that lawsuit in the Northern District of
Dennis
California.
Prager.
Yeah, okay. And I was
Yeah.
watching that lawsuit.
Mhm,
I downloaded his complaint. I downloaded their answer. I downloaded
mhm,
his motion for a preliminary injunction. I downloaded their motion for summary
mhm,
judgment. I was following that case really intently because I thought, hey, this guy's got a shot. Because the law firm he hired, it was a big ass law firm. In fact, it had Pete Wilson's name, former Governor Pete Wilson's name, still in it, and he's still alive. I mean, that's the kind of
mhm,
power you have to go because the law firms that Google, YouTube hired, they're big powerhouses with tons of staff, and they'll just paper you to death. I mean, literally,
mhm,
you'll fill up two. Like, take your bedroom for instance. Like, say it's 10 by 15. You'll fill up two to three
mhm,
of those rooms with documents that you have to go through
mhm.
because there may be that
Yeah.
one piece. They know where the important stuff is, and it's buried in all those documents. Until you read through all those documents, you may not find it. Like they may be completely honest in discovery. You'll say, "Okay, send me the documents that show this, this, and this," and they say, "Oh,
Mhm,
okay." Now they could hide it, which is they can get sanctioned pretty badly for that. Okay, I mean to the point
mhm.
of they could have their
Yeah.
answers stricken and you lose the case. Okay, or
Mhm,
they'll shoot you every freaking piece of paper in the world they have and say, here's 4 rooms full of documents. Have at it. Have fun going through them. Pay piece by piece by
yeah.
piece, and within there is a document you're looking for. Good luck. So unless you have the kind of money to hire all the staff and the attorneys and everything else to be able to take them on, you're going to lose because you just
Yeah.
don't have the time to
Well,
do it.
mhm. What they need to do with Google and other social, I won't mention, but I will say other social media platforms that are now censoring Republican and conservative senators, um, from what I've been reading, they need to remove some of these protections that Congress gave them. Because, Twitter is the new town hall. It is the new town square for not just, locally, but for the whole country, for the whole world, literally. And they need to remove those protections. What was it, the civic protections, I think, that Congress gave them, civil protections. And because if they remove those, Google and other social media platforms that have been censoring conservatives will be more vulnerable to lawsuits. I don't know how much more vulnerable, but they will be more vulnerable to lawsuits than they are right now. Because if they're trying to, I mean, Twitter, I think, literally said that they were going to that interview with that girl that was called to Congress, right? And she was saying, well, I don't know Jen. I don't know, I work in, this department, She calls her Jen. Okay, well, Jen, anybody with the name Jennifer, usually, on average, a good friend will refer to the name Jennifer by the name of Jen, rather than having to say that. I don't know if that makes sense the way I say that, but, you could tell that she's lying to Congress through her teeth, just in her body language, the way she moves her eyes, the way she's not making eye contact with anybody,
Right.
or she's making eye contact, it's brief, and, in Google right now is at the point where, well, let me put it this way, not just Google, but social media platforms in general are in a position where they have more power than our elected officials, It's like Elizabeth Warren. She says that she's going to break up Google. Okay, how exactly is she going to do that? Because let's say if people want to find dirt on Elizabeth Warren, right? All
Mm-hmm.
Google has to do is just make the search engine, like whenever anybody puts in Elizabeth Warren, Google could rig it to where the algorithms show up all the dirt on Elizabeth Warren, and bam, right there, it ruins her.
Oh
It could ruin
yeah.
her political
Oh
career
yeah.
over
No,
time.
no. That's
So,
why. That's why. Google gets. That's why. Look, not to mention Google knows everything about you. Okay, like if you're in
yeah,
Congress and you're having an affair with your secretary, well, she has a phone, you have a phone, and so you remember like Tucker showed how they track your phone even when you're on airplane mode, and then you take it off airplane mode and
yep,
everything uploads. Okay, so they track you, and here
yeah,
you are at a restaurant that happens to be sitting inside of a hotel, and you happen to be there for 3 hours, and then they say, okay, who else is in that restaurant? So they do a scan of all the different phones through their software. They have a program that finds that out, right? And then, oh, here's his
mm,
secretary. And she's there for 3 hours. And what's her relationship to this guy? Oh, she works for him. Oh, and then next week, same place, same bad channel, same bad time, and these two people are there again. Okay, well, they're having an affair. And then they put that out.
yeah,
So that's why people,
yeah,
both parties, oh, Google, oh, yeah, we're going to look into that. Yeah, because they know Goool has the goods on all of them. So,
yeah,
and you're right. Like, for instance, if you go to Google right now and you type in BitChute, like you're looking for BitChute,
mm-hmm,
like, you should really go
mm-hmm,
BIT and it should like string out BitChute, right? It doesn't. You got to type
yeah,
BitChute all the way
mm-hmm,
out and it still won't give you any answers until you hit enter. And then it'll pop up.
yeah,
Okay, so I mean,
exactly, yeah,
there you go. I mean, obviously, if you spell the whole name BitChute, it should show some search results, right? It doesn't show any until you hit enter. You got to hit enter first
mm-hmm,
before it'll show you the search results for BitChute. So
yeah,
I mean, and that's pretty sad. I mean, but that's what they do, and you're right. So yeah, she wants to break
yeah,
up. She wants to break up Google. Yeah, I mean, is it a monopoly? Is it a vertical monopoly? Well, just what I just told you right now. Obviously, it's a vertical monopoly because if you they're
yeah,
suppressing, they're
on
suppressing, they're
information,
yeah, they're suppressing like even searching for a competitor. So obviously, that makes them a vertical monopoly by definition. So yeah, should they be broken up in different regional areas and stuff like that so they don't have so much control over the information source? Probably. I'm a big capitalist, but probably. And is it going to be looked at? Yeah, but
mm-hmm,
guess the lead guy for the U.S. attorney for the Attorney General's office who's handling it was a former lobbyist for
mm-hmm,
Google. Okay, think
yeah,
about that for a second.
mm-hmm,
And he got appointed by
yeah, he's
Donald.
probably gonna, mm-hmm,
He got appointed by President Trump, and he's in charge of the Civil Antitrust Division. And he was a former lobbyist for
uh-huh,
Google.
mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
It's like
one of Trump's mistakes.
Well,
I don't like pointing out Trump's mistakes,
yeah.
but
It's like the banks. It's like okay, well, generally the people who are either secretary of the treasurer or chairman of the Fed generally work for Goldman Sachs. Generally you either have both working for Goldman Sachs or one or the other at any given time were formerly employed by Goldman Sachs, and then they say, okay, we want to investigate the banks. Really?
mhm,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. Because when they leave government work, where do they go back to? Same place.
mhm.
And of course, they
Well,
know they
you
got a
know what's
nice, cushy
funny?
job and
Mhm,
paycheck waiting for them.
mhm. You know what's funny? You try to type in Mercer, the Mercer family, you
Yeah.
don't find anything about what they're doing politically or anything. You can't. So when I think of that, right? Whenever I go to type in Mercer, that tells me that Google does not want me to see what Mercer is doing. Because again, Mercer is not part of the globalist narrative. Again, their family working with Trump. You know what I mean? I mean, everything that I've seen. I know I mentioned this a million times.
Right.
So it's like, why is it that why is it that you can't find anything on Mercer? Because
Right.
even though again, even though that they may have publicly they may have backed away from Trump, that does not mean that they're not working with him behind the scenes. Same thing
Right.
with Bannon. Bannon, supposedly Rebecca Mercer cut ties with Bannon, but that doesn't, in the open, but that doesn't mean that she cut ties with him behind the scenes. You know what I'm
Exactly.
saying?
Right.
Because, because like, Bannon, what's funny? If the globalists truly had control of everything, they would have brought Bannon in under some kind of a deal, like a shady. I mean, I don't know Bannon personally. I don't know anything about Bannon, but let's face it, the man's not the man's not perfect. He might have had a shady business deal or something. Might have broken a law here or two. And I guarantee you that if these globalists had total
Well,
control,
well, well.
they
You know,
would have
you know, you
brought
know,
Bannon in under
well,
some kind of
well, you know who Bannon worked for, right?
Goldman Sachs. Yeah,
Goldman Sachs, yeah. So, but anyway, tell you what, man, I'm going to
yeah.
cut the live stream for tonight. I've been out for 2 hours. I got to get up and
Oh
go
yeah,
to.
I'm
I
sorry,
get no,
Carl. I
no,
didn't mean
no,
to.
no, no,
Mhm.
not no, no. I got to get up and go to work in the morning. It's okay. It's 12:30 my time. So anyway, but
Mhm.
all right, Mr. Great Dirtbag, thanks for calling in. Have a great night, man. Great phone call as usual, man.
All right, you too.
All right,
You're
take care.
welcome, and take care. All right.
All right, bye bye. All right, let's see here. Boom. All right, that was the great dirtbag and a great phone call as usual. And it's 12:30 my time, a little after. I've been on for a little over 2 hours. So I want to thank everybody who's been in the chat room. And K Carl, 100% ears up on you now. Okay, thanks. But okay, yeah. So thanks for everybody who's been in the chat room. Thanks for everybody who's been viewing. Everybody will be viewing later. And good night, everyone. Just again, just a great live stream. Really enjoyed the discussion. Always enjoy a discussion with the great dirtbag. Always some really good philosophical issues that we discuss. So I really enjoyed that. So anyway, for Carl's opinion, this is Carl. Have a great night, everybody, and take care. Bye bye.